The following program is brought to you by Fanbags Cornhole, Chicago's official supplier of professional cornhole boards and bags. Choose from any of their officially licensed designs or have my boy Brian design a custom set using anything from a selfie to your company's logo. Visit www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS to get 10% off your entire order. That's www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS for 10% off. Step up your game with Fanbags Cornhole.
It's Zach Edey with Purdue men's basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back and better than ever, recovered after a 2-week hiatus from our Boilers in the Stands shows after a tough loss in the first round of the NCAA tournament at the hands of Fairleigh Dickinson. So I'm your host, Kraig Bowers Jr. Alongside me, as always, is my guys Kraig Bowers, Joe Jackson, and Aidan Kunst. We're going to be talking a lot about the season in its entirety, in its totality, from the good, the bad, and then the eventual ugly as how it finished. We obviously reacted to it post game, but now that we've had a few weeks to kind of let it settle, and now we're going to have a chance to have a bigger picture outlook on everything. We're going to try to run through it all as best we can without crying about things. So, but before we do that, we want to bring on our special guest. As always, he's been here these 3 years running, just helping us out in such a big way. And he is the color analyst for Purdue men's basketball and former Boiler guard himself. Bobby Riddell joins the show. How we doing, Bobby?
Doing great. How you doing, Greg?
I'm doing all right. It's taken a few weeks to kind of get over this whole thing, and I'm still not, if I had to be completely honest. It just kills me. If I thought the St. Peter's loss was something that would be hard to deal with, this one strikes even worse in a lot of ways for me because, just when it comes to, I just want Purdue to get over this hump so badly. And I feel they are close. And I would have never in a million years thought that they would have a loss like this. And it's just one of those losses. And you're a Cub fan. We won today, so there is a positive. But it reminds me a lot of the Bartman moment in a lot of ways. A team that has had a history of curses and bad moments, and then this peak moment of as bad as it gets. And it's just one of those losses you'll never live down until you finally get the crown. So, I'm hoping you can get me back on the positive side, because I've been in a dark place the last few weeks.
Yeah, I've been bumming out a lot as well. Like I'm sure everybody who's a Purdue fan or part of the program has. It was certainly heartbreaking to go out in that fashion, but you don't want that one loss to unfortunately like cover up all the good and positive that happened during the season, because it was a really unexpected fun season. The first team to win both the Big Ten regular season and Big Ten tournament in Purdue history in the same year. That was obviously a unbelievable accomplishment. So yeah, it's definitely a bummer that you have a great unexpected season that ends in that fashion, to where obviously a lot of the Purdue fan base and the team and everybody was extremely disappointed with how that finished. But yeah, the way, what you mentioned about the Bartman thing, being a Cubs fan like yourself and obviously Purdue fan. Yeah, it probably it probably will take Purdue getting to a Final Four to where you get over some of these losses. I'd probably equate the Virginia loss more to like that Bartman loss, as far as like something really flukish and being that close to making it to the World Series or Final Four, as far as that moment for me. Whereas, losing this year in that fashion, more of just a unexpected heartbreaker versus being that close to the Final Four. But yeah, either way, lots of, heartbreak, unfortunately, over the last handful of years in the tournament. And, I think a lot of Purdue people will feel once we finally reach that mountaintop, which I think is in our future, then we'll be able to forget all that other stuff that happened.
Yeah, I mean, that's the journey, right? I mean, for any team that you root for, especially if you're a Chicago sports fan, the heartache, it makes the champagne taste a little sweeter because you earned it. And we've talked about this a lot on this show. For me personally, I'm newer to the Purdue basketball program than you are, Bobby, or Kraig is, and so I'm earning my stripes every year with each one of these tough losses. But that is what it is. As you pointed out, it was a very good season, an unexpected season, and I was on with my guys Waddle and Sylvie on ESPN 1000. They were trying to give me some crap about it, and I made the comment that they are victims of their own success, and they laughed at me about that. And I said, well, guys, they were not supposed to be the number one seed. The teams that were in Indiana and Illinois, they underachieved, so they get lower seeds and lose, and you don't notice it. But for Purdue, they overachieve. No one thought Zach Edey was going to be a National Player of the Year. Nobody thought Purdue was going to win the Big Ten. They win the Big Ten tournament as well. No one ever thought they were going to be a one seed in their wildest dreams. And then they have this loss, and that it like wipes all of that away. And for me, that's really frustrating because, like last year's team, we've had so many comparisons to last year's team. Last year's team was a disappointment in a lot of ways because they fell short of every one of their goals going into the season that they thought they were going to get. This team outperformed every goal that I think most fans were reasonably having for them. So to be in the same spot at the end of the thing is just like, man, I just want Purdue to catch a break. I want the head coach to catch a break. I want the players to catch a break, and the fan base. They deserve it. They've been through this a lot. So I'm going to kick it around the horn and let these guys go, because I know the chat doesn't want to hear me bellyache all night.
Yeah, So I'd be careful, Greg, in terms of like you're kind of basing the outlook of the season and where the success of the season was both times off of where they were predicted preseason. And in the era of transfer portal, in the era of 6-year students, whatever it is, nobody really knows, right? They're throwing darts at a friggin' wall at the beginning of the season. So at some point this season, we had to drop that. Oh, they were predicted to finish 6th at the beginning of the year. Like, people don't really know at the beginning of the year. So I guess I'd be a little bit careful about drawing too much of a conclusion or consistently drawing back to that before we even played a game. What did people think we were? But at the same time, I think without a doubt, every team, and we've heard Painter say this over and over again, every team comes into the beginning of the season with 3 goals in mind: win the Big Ten regular season championship, win the Big Ten tourney, and win the national title, right? This team can say they did 2 of those 3 things. And it doesn't really matter. I mean, it does, right? Because people are going to bring it up. But it doesn't really matter if you lost the first game or the 5th game. If you didn't win the national championship, then you didn't succeed in that goal, right? You get a banner if you make the Final Four. So let's say maybe there's something to that. But in 20 years, at the end of the day, whether they win in the first round or lose in the first round, the second round, if that prevents you from getting to your goal, that's 1 goal that's off the card, right? But they still accomplished 2 of those 3 goals. At the same time, last year's team made the Sweet 16, so they went a little bit further. And unfortunately, my feelings about single elimination tournaments. I think they're the absolute worst way to pick a champion. I think they're by far and away the most entertaining way to pick a champion. But by and large, in college basketball, you're judged by what happens in that single tournament. So in many ways, I know you said last year in some ways felt like more of a disappointment than this year. And for other people from the outside looking in, this is going to look more that way because so many people just judge it on that single tournament at the end of the year.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think it's because last year's team had the lottery pick, had all the seniors. They came in, and again, like you said, coming into the season with a different expectation level. This season, I mean, if they'd gotten the Sweet 16 and lost, I would have been okay with that, knowing how young a lot of these guys are. But to lose to a 16, it's like I said, the reason I compare it to a Bartman moment is like the St. Peter's. Yeah, people will talk about that forever, but again, they got to a Sweet 16. This is a 16 seed, only the
Right.
time that's ever happened. And the other team that did it went on to win a national championship the next year. So they kind of washed it. Will Purdue do that next year? I hope, because that'll make this story great, but they got to do it first. And if not, they're going to be the one that gets to wear this 16 seed a lot harder than Virginia does, because Virginia's got the banner up in their rafters. So,
and the amusing thing about that to me is Virginia is the program that I compare us to constantly. Just based off the way he recruits players, based off the fact that they have a defined system and what they do. But Bobby, when you were watching that game, like there was a moment for me where I was like, okay, we might be in trouble. And it was actually pretty early. It was actually pretty early in the game for me. Was there a moment where you were like, oh, like they can do some things that might really give us trouble here?
Yeah, I mean, certainly just initially out the gates, seeing them apply the full court pressure, seeing them just swarm Zach and load up on him and obviously make it difficult for us to get him the ball. And then just, guys missing shots. Granted, like Braden Smith and Fletcher, I think both made threes relatively early. That made me feel good. But I think at that point early in the game, they were kind of scoring relatively well. So the game was still close, even though we were hitting a couple shots from outside. I think Zach missed a couple of shots early in the game that he normally makes. So the game was kind of tight, and I was like, all right, it'd be nice, of course, for us to push us out a little bit. You start to feel a little bit better. But their style of play and then the way we started missing open shots to the degree we did, come halftime when we're trailing, I was certainly nervous. I just watched, I think it was Baylor earlier in the day. They were down by 1 at the half and ended up winning convincingly. So I still was like, all right, we'll make a run in the second half and push it out. And when Mason hit his 3 to start the second half, I started like, okay, the positive vibes were back. I was feeling good. And then we just couldn't hit a shot. We couldn't hit a shot the rest of the way for the most part. We had way too many costly turnovers. And yeah, certainly I think the first time I was like really worried we were going to lose is when I think we went down by 5 at one point, kind of late in the second half. And that's when I definitely was extremely concerned. But I always had a feeling we were going to pull it out the whole time. I just thought we'd make the plays to win the game, but obviously we didn't. You got to give their coach credit. It stinks because he was kind of called a shot or whatever. The the day before, and
Yeah.
We talked about it. The staff talked about it. I mean, everybody knew. I mean, the players were asked about it in the interviews. So there was obviously extra motivation for us, but you still have to go out there and play the game, and got to give their coach credit. He went with the one strategy that probably gave them a chance in that game, which was, looking at Purdue's team, which is loaded with a bunch of inconsistent shooters, hope they have an off night and just completely swarm Zach and take him out of the fold. Hope that there's a lot of long rebounds off missed threes that we can get and go the other way. Apply full court pressure, knowing Purdue doesn't have a whole lot of high-level ball handlers. And knowing even if Purdue does break the press, we don't have a lot of guys who are great attacking the basket that can maybe make us pay for extending our defense. A lot of times Purdue likes to get into their half-court set, try to get the ball inside to Zach because he's so dominant and efficient. But that, of course, worked into their defensive game plan as far as not really worrying about our shooters and just knowing that we're going to swarm Zach regardless. So, their strategy obviously, still allowed us to shoot open shots the entire game. So, right. I think he knew that, okay, we have a bad defense. I think per KenPom, their defense was one of the worst in the country. So they knew they obviously couldn't guard Zach or us traditionally in the half court, but they knew on one, maybe a one random night based on Purdue's statistics from a 3-point shooting standpoint. And I think we dodged a lot of bullets throughout the year, right? We had a lot of very similar nights. A couple that come to mind are the Davidson game in Indy, the game at Nebraska.
Yep.
A couple games that come to mind where we really shot poorly but found a way to win. And so maybe, people don't, raise the red flag as much when you win those games, whereas obviously we don't end up making the plays down the stretch to win the Fairleigh Dickinson game and it costs you. But, that game had unfolded multiple times that season, unfortunately, but we chose the wrong time to not be able to pull it out.
Yeah. I'm going to kick it in just a second, but just reply to that. My moment came real early on, like 2 plays and maybe 3 or 4 in a row. They went 5 out and forced Zach to switch on a guard at about 23, 24 feet. Like where they were setting up their offense was so far out. Zach had to cover so much ground trying to defend them going to the rim. And I was like, oh, like they're doing what people said they could do to us all year, but they're doing it another few feet out and we're guarding them all the way out there. And I hadn't seen little quick guards actually go all the way to the rim most of the year. They went mid-range and pulled up and shot. But I know Joe and Aidan want to jump in here. So
yeah, and with that, it wasn't like Purdue's defense was bad. I thought 0.98 points per possession. Yeah, but I don't think it was I think it was just the shooting. For me, before I asked, the moment was they go up 6 in the second half with like 12 minutes left or so. And that was kind of, I was saying it on the podcast before and stuff before the game. I was like, this game has a chance to be like, hey, this is going to be kind of a close first half. Purdue then pushes it out second half. Purdue wins by 25 points. Go up 6. I'm like, okay, it's starting to trend that way. And then they hit I believe it was a rimmed out 3 from Purdue. Then Fairleigh Dickinson just hits I think it was more, just hits a deep 3 on Edey, come down, miss, and then Roberts gets a quick layup. And now it's a 1-point game. And that was when I was like, uh-oh. That was the moment that I thought they needed to really just push out. There might have been a turnover in there. I forget.
Yeah, it was in that moment when they were up 6. I think to tie it was when the ball went off Brandon Newman's face. They go back the other way, and it was an and one.
Their guard hit a pull-up jumper too, and they called Braden for a pretty questionable foul on a pull-up. I think it was a 6-point game when that happened. That cut it to 3.
Very similar to the St. Peter's, because they had a 6-point lead under 10 minutes, and then St. Peter's threw that punch back. But I'll let Aidan kick it to it before I got my next question, because I want to talk about tempo. But
Joe never got a question.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're good. I was just gonna say, I try to stay positive. I try to keep things positive, and with that, there was still, if you take out these 40 minutes, it was a tremendous season. And as somebody that you travel with the team, obviously color analyst, all that. Do you have a favorite moment that you could say besides maybe celebrating the championships. We'll take those out because I feel like those are probably the easy ones.
Yeah, I mean, Craig and Greg are going to know my favorite probably. Early on in the season, we played a team that I was really happy to beat when we faced off against the Gonzaga Bulldogs.
That's right.
Those Gonzaga teams this recent years were obviously extremely talented, extremely good. They were loaded with pros. But I, of course, similar to Houston this year, would get annoyed by those teams' easier schedules. And now, you probably will hear me complain a lot less about those teams, beating the teams they're supposed to beat. But us getting that chance to play Gonzaga and then winning in the fashion we did out in Portland and kind of being like, wow, we're actually pretty for real. That was probably my favorite moment. And then, of course, we backed it up with the win against Duke. So, yeah, that time out in Portland, my dad came out there on that trip. So I got to share a few meals with him during that trip. And he was like overjoyed, like couldn't believe how much fun it was being at the games and like how well we were playing. And so, yeah, that was probably my favorite part of the season as far, besides the championships, of course, was that early season success and kind of taking the country by storm early on was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah, and it seemed like to Craig's point earlier in the transfer portal era, it seemed like this Purdue team maybe just gelled from a chemistry standpoint quicker than most of, if not the rest of the country, and was able to have success by kind of being the best, most unselfish team, at least out in Portland. It felt that way. I don't know. I'm curious, Bobby, like you've been in these locker rooms. What do you make of like the freshman wall thing or like, in other words, what I'm trying to get at is like, we saw them play so well in Portland and then kind of over the course of the year, maybe a little bit of adversity strikes and by March, it's just not quite the same thing. Of course, the shooting variance is what it is. But I'm wondering just kind of over the course of a season or, the dog days of February, all that stuff, like, what do you think it was this year? Or do you think it was just simply, hey, we missed shots in a big game and like the guys were fine. It's just, but it did feel like some of the guys, who had such a hot start to their season, maybe started to hit a little bit of that wall, which I think happens to most people, honestly. I don't think it's certainly unique to Purdue at all, especially the younger guys. But it did feel like that kind of happened over the course of the season and from that kind of high point like you're talking about in Portland. So I'm wondering, like, from a player's perspective, if you ever felt that or how that kind of works.
Well, I wish I could say that I was playing 30 minutes a game throughout the course of a season and was dealing with that sort of load those guys were dealing with, but I never experienced that aspect. But I mean, my freshman year, I did get to play a decent amount on a, unfortunately, very bad Purdue team. But I don't remember ever like feeling like I hit a wall or anything. But I mean, I was giddy as hell to get any minutes I was getting. So I was certainly, going all out for, the opportunities I had. But Braden was still playing extremely well. I felt like for the most part later in the year, certainly like anybody, had some good games and bad games. But, as far as the freshman wall, like I'm sure every player is fatigued to some degree later in the season. Of course, for freshmen, it is a big jump from high school to college. I mean, that is one thing. I mean, the jump from high school to college is huge. And those guys obviously handled it extremely well to start the year. But, as they started to have success, teams started to game plan for them more. And, Fletcher started getting like the opposing player's best perimeter defender every game. And, they're bumping and pushing them. And, it was a lot less free flowing than probably it was early in the season for him. And then, as he started to struggle, maybe his confidence might not have been as high. And that might also lead to some struggles. But, in that Fairleigh Dickinson game before he had to kind of take that desperation three,
He played well. Yeah.
3 for 7 from 3 and had made a couple other shots and was playing fairly well. So, he actually played one of his probably better overall games in that game as far as the season kind of concluded. But yeah, he definitely was scuffling and missing some shots he normally makes. And, that college 3-point line is quite a bit further back than the high school 3-point line now that it's at the international distance. So, maybe tired legs a little bit, maybe as far as late in the season and some shots that you think feel money off your hand or just a fraction short. I felt like he just missed a fraction short the last like 2 months of the season. I didn't feel like he was missing like left and right a whole lot necessarily. I felt like he was just like, man, he was just short with that. And, maybe that's just the difference as far as being in a college season versus a high school season. And just, I think he dealt with a calf injury a little bit, the latter half of the season. I don't know how severe it was, but
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff, I think in the grand scheme of things, it all plays a part, but I still was impressed with those guys, their seasons as a whole. And I think they're both going to make, continue to make huge jumps every year throughout their college career.
Yeah, I think my observation of to me why they lost. I mean, shooting is the first thing you go to because they were 5 of 26 from 3. But the thing to me that stood out the most in the second half of why they lost is the tempo. And I for the way the game was going, I didn't, every time they pressed, we've seen this a million times this year. Teams do this to us where they either hard press us like Iowa does, or even a soft press where they make it somewhat difficult for you to get it across the half court, where now you're around 20 seconds when you cross the half court line, which limits the system offense that Painter likes to run, where you're trying to get it into Zach and run your offense through that. But there were times in the second half of the Fairleigh Dickinson game where they get the rebound, they're not pressing, and Braden walks it up the court. And I know a lot of people will point to Painter and say he's the problem, but I have specifically heard Matt Painter say in one time when he was addressing the fans at the open scrimmage where he did a Q&A with the fans, and he talked about trying to get as many possessions as possible. And Chris Ruda asks it in the chat, so I'll kind of let him frame it. He said, do we have the guys to get out and run on misses? There's not a doubt in my mind MSU scores 85 points plus a game in the same game just based on style alone. And that was my observation of that game. Like every time they got a rebound and they walked it up, I'm like, go. There's only 10 minutes left. Quit. You're playing right into their hands by walking it up. They don't even need to press when you're doing that. Why did they choose to slow the tempo down when it seemed to me that if they had just pushed the envelope a little more, it could have swung the momentum back in their favor? Was the turnovers in the first half that much of a, where they had to deter from something like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly the poor shooting plus the turnovers, ends up being, the true undoing. And, as Kraig pointed out, there was some defensive issues at time to time, certainly with Zach having to guard in the perimeter. But, as Joe was kind of talking about, defense in the end, I don't think was obviously the problem compared to, the turnovers and the poor shooting as a whole. But, I mean, to your point, just about stylistically, our team from a personnel standpoint and just the style of play we played all year, like we were opportunistic when we pushed, a lot of the times that being Braden, of course, who had the ball. Majority of our other guards either aren't great ball handlers to begin with or aren't super fast with the ball in their hands. But, when Braden would get it, we would push that thing from time to time. But for the most part, we were a half-court offensive team, get the ball to the National Player of the Year, let him dunk on somebody or get a wide open three.
Which we got plenty of.
Yeah. Which, that strategy worked a lot. I think what Fairleigh Dickinson did kind of differently than what we saw any other team throughout the year is we would see some teams press, and then when they would come back into half court, they would play a pretty traditional half court defense. We'd see some teams like Nebraska, like kind of sell out to take Zach away. But they're not pressing, or like Davidson, I think kind of sold out, but they're not pressing us. So like, it was kind of that combination of like the press and exposing maybe our lack of ball handling as a whole, our lack of ability to, when we do break the press, whether it's our 4-man, whether it's a 3-man, guys that just aren't great ball handlers, so even though you have numbers, if it's not in your game to like go and attack open space, you're not going to do it or feel comfortable doing it. And so it kind of played in their hands that they could, overexpose themselves at times and not really worry as much about us making them pay. Like a lot of, he's talking about Michigan State. Like, yeah, a lot of those Michigan State teams in the past had like guys 1 through 4, or maybe at least 1 through 3 were all like really good athletes, really good ball handlers that are trying to go and like tear the rim off in situations like that. Well, that wasn't our team. So, it was just kind of it's crazy because, you don't think the 116 matchups are necessarily going to be that way. But I think with just the parity in college basketball, we're seeing it just in the tournament this year as far as, no 1 through 3 seeds making the Final Four, no guys from the 3 AP All-American teams making the Final Four. The parity is just crazy. And, our talent advantage besides Zach over Fairleigh Dickinson, probably isn't super extreme. And, they played a style that unfortunately, tugged on a little bit of our weaknesses. And then, we did still get a bunch of wide open shots, which is what you want. But if you don't make them, and then if you have the turnovers that can compound those issues, you get that 5% chance or 2% chance or whatever it was that we were going to lose that game, and it came up. But
do you think that the emphasis that Matt Painter relies on so heavily of having such an efficient offense, the last few years, they've been one of the top teams in the country in offensive efficiency. And so that means you're not missing many shots. You're not turning the ball over when you're being efficient, right? Do you think that because when you watch a game like Kent State and Miami or those types of teams, Kent State versus or not Kent State, Kansas State versus what was my favorite game of this year? Help me out, guys.
Kansas State for Michigan State?
No. Well,
the Final Four game, Kansas State versus FAU.
Well, either way.
FAU, Kansas State?
Yeah, sure. Exactly, yes. When you watch those teams, it doesn't seem like the misses or the turnovers affect them. They just go. And Purdue, I love Matt Painter. I'd ask him this if we ever brought him on again. Right to his, I love Matt Painter. I think he's one of the best coaches in the country. But these are some of the questions that I start to have when I watch other teams and their success. Is his coaching philosophy and how rigid he is with the system and the efficiency that he really, the analytics. I know he's so big on that stuff. Is there something to be said that they just got to let it go and play?
Well, yeah. I mean, at some point, players got to play, right? Like, you can't play tight. You can't play scared. All that stuff, like that's all true. And that's what's great about March Madness, right? Is like a 8-point deficit can feel like 20-point deficit in a March Madness game because like it's win or go home and the pressure and so I'm sure the pressure and I'm sure some of our guys felt that like why how wouldn't you? Obviously the great ones feed off that pressure and thrive, but on that particular night we didn't. But I think we still, as far as if we would have shot like 35% from 3, or like 33%, which was like our average, we win that game like easily. So, we just needed an average performance, and we got a really below average performance, which obviously can happen. Like, we had a 33% 3-point percentage for a reason, like, because we did have some bad days. And I mean, like, I don't know what else, Coach Payne can't shoot the shots for those guys, obviously. So like those guys have to step up in that moment. And, I'm sure the staff and everybody, during timeouts was saying, hey, take your open shots, take that one when you're open next time. Like, I'm sure they're saying all the right things and being encouraging, but when you're out there in that moment, it's just tough though. A lot of those guys throughout the whole season, they're being told and coached to like take your open shots, but like, let's throw it inside a lot to like the guy who's National Player of the Year. And so, you get it, you look inside, it's not there. And then you're kind of out of rhythm, and then you move it and it comes back. And then, and then if you've missed a couple, it's one of those domino effects, and you're trying to find that balance between trying to get the ball inside to Zach. Man, he hasn't got a touch in a while. I've missed my last 2 shots.
Right.
It's tough, right?
Because you saw that with like Caleb First, he passed up a few shots that he probably takes in the regular season. Brandon Newman at one point is wide open, just grip it and rip it. And he's like setting up like it's a free throw. And that's not like him to do that. He's the guy that's green light is always on. So you could see that through the TV where the pressure of should I shoot this because we're not shooting well, or should I get it into Zach? You could see the clocks turning from the couch at home. And it's frustrating because you just want these guys to just go, and you watch some of these other teams, and I get like Kansas State or FAU, maybe they have more experience, and maybe that's what some of these guys need. But I've seen it now a few times where these guys just get so tight, and I just wish they'd let it go and play because they're better than that. And they know that, but I understand they got a big, the pressure is immense at Purdue right now. They have a big, monkey to get off their back. Go ahead, guys.
But
Yeah,
the other thing,
I was
your
going to add to
point,
that
Greg.
really, really quick, and then I'll let you guys go because this is relevant. There was, I have it up now. It's a New York Times article by Noah Wieland. It was mentioned on there that like a lot of the players had kind of confided to coaching staff, and then it got mentioned in the article of like dealing with sleep issues, dealing with like some anxiety from just the pressure of basketball and school and all that. There is, I think, that part of it too. Of you mentioned like playing tight in that. Just wanted to throw that. I don't know what just happened. Okay.
I don't know.
But
I kicked you out.
I just wanted to throw that out there too. I will also say, and I'm not agreeing or disagreeing about push more. And I think it's more just kind of funny. Per synergy, this was Purdue's most transition attempts in a game since the Duke game, the Fairleigh Dickinson, which is just,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And
I
I
find it ironic.
I actually thought in the first half they tried to take advantage of the press more than they had in other games. I was sitting next to some ISC guys, and I turned to them and I said, "Oh, like there was a couple plays where like, oh, we're actually going to push it and like take advantage of getting ahead of them in that press and whatnot." But to Greg's point, and just a slightly different take on what Greg was saying there, like I think when there's such a focus on analytics, right? And Painter talks about 3-point shots and post play in terms of the analytics playing out. But if you're not hitting threes and you can just load up on that post, you got to have a guy that can just go get a shot, right? You got to have a guy that can hit the inefficient shot, that can make mid-range shots at a high level, similar to a Pickett or somebody like that. And I just don't know that we necessarily had that this year. Like it's really easy for Class M tailgaters to call into Matt Painter on the radio show and say you need to do that more. But if you don't have the guys to do it, like you can't do it. And we saw like Painter tried to get that guy, right? He tried to get Nigel Pack. He tried to get the kid that goes to Texas. He tried to get another. Right. Like he knew we needed that Carson Edwards, Jaden Ivey, Etwan Moore guy on this team. And no offense to David Jenkins, I friggin' love David Jenkins. And if he ever wants to co-host with us, like long term, bring that dude on. He was awesome on our show. But I'm just like, we didn't have that dude this year that could just go get his own bucket at some point that maybe isn't an efficient bucket, right? That like you're falling down, you just got banged and you're still going to put it in and go to the line, or you're going to shoot a crazy 5-foot bank shot that's not efficient, but you can still get a bucket in that critical time when you have to just go get a hard bucket.
Yeah, no question about that. I mean, you got to have, as was the Kansas State's coach said, you got to have dudes, right? Like sometimes you just got to have dudes be able to like go make some plays. And to your point, Kraig, like we didn't have a team full of guys who were great at getting their own shot off the dribble. And like, I think we talked about that preseason being one of our big concerns for this team. And, it definitely reared its ugly head like throughout the season a lot, but we found ways to win some close games. We had just a dominant force down low that, especially early, like in the preseason in the pre-conference play, like, our shooters maybe were given some more respect. Zach Edey was just getting a lot of one-on-one coverage. We would run like some dummy action on the weak side, and, teams are paying attention to that and guarding that tightly. And we're throwing lobs over the top to Zach for wide open dunks and things of that nature. Like all that stuff was gone in the Fairleigh Dickinson game. And that is, to your point, Kraig, like when you need to have, some guys who maybe can go make an individual play, stop on a dime at 15 feet and rise up and hit a jumper. And, our team wasn't loaded with guys who were capable of doing that at this point of their career. And so, yeah, it was, an unfortunate thing that was a weakness of ours that, reared its ugly head at the most inopportune time.
Yeah, I was gonna say to your guys' points earlier, like to me it felt like watching it back, I think FDU really just decided not only guard our guys on the 3-point line, but not even to guard any of that dummy action you're talking about. I mean, they really didn't even guard, the motion, whatever little trigger action they want to run to get us into what we're actually trying to do. And they just sagged off. They just said, no, we're going to throw 3 or 4 guys at Edey, and it just got Purdue out of rhythm. Like, you throw it over, your first instinct is to look inside. That's what these guys have been taught to do. And now it's not there, and now you're wide open, but you've already pass faked and you're out of rhythm to shoot a 3. And so I think that was one of the things that, which credit to FDU. I mean, there's a heck of a game plan. And then the other thing I think, to go off of that point, is maybe it's less about a guy who can rise up and hit a 15-footer, although that would have been nice at points during the season. But thinking back to the FDU game, like, just attack a closeout, like maybe we just get to the rim. They don't have a real rim protector. Maybe instead of taking, one of the 33s who just shot fake, drive the basket, maybe Zach seals off a man as he was, prone to do, and you get a wide open layup. So I think that's part of the development curve, I think, certainly for our young guys. And then, I think the reason why we don't run like a Michigan State is they have 3 to 4 guys who might be pros. I mean, like, there are at least 3, in the backcourt alone with Hogard, Walker and Aiken. So, like, that's just not how Purdue's going to run it. I think they can be more efficient in the half court. They are a team right now, in my mind, that's built to just dominate the Big Ten. They become the premier program in the Big Ten. But, like, I don't know, these FDU matchups are just tough. They're tough for this team's personnel. But at the same time, I think the young guys are going to be dudes. There may not be dudes yet. But I just think dribble, pass, shoot, like, it didn't feel like we had guys who could do all 3 a lot. Maybe I would say Braden, but, there was a moment probably in that game where we needed to take Braden out, and we just didn't have a guy to really bring in. So I think, again, the roster was not perfect. We took some swings in the offseason, certainly, and just didn't happen to get him for whatever reason. Obviously, one being a massive bag was dropped, and he's doing well now. But, it just kind of is what it is. I don't really have a question for you, Bobby, but that's just kind of my thoughts.
Well, then I'm going to piggyback off that with the question, because one of my greatest fears after the game, and I'm trying not to be negative for our audience here, but I just got to let it all. I got to purge this out of my system. And I promise by the time we might do some player interviews here with some guys that are coming into the program next year here in the next couple weeks, and I will get over this, but I just need to purge some of these questions out of my soul. And one of the fears that came over me like a couple days after the game were, I think we all go to this thing, and I'm one of them that says, man, wait till Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer are seniors. They're going to be so good. They had great years this year. And my question is, and I hate this to be a negative question, but this is my question, and I hope you knock it down. Is this their peak? Is this who they are, or is this dream of them by the time they're a senior? Are they going to look like the guard from Kansas State who was like unbelievable throughout the tournament, or the guys at Miami? Is that what the future holds for Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer? Andy Beck asked in the chat, what does Fletcher need to do this offseason to improve his 3-point shoot? His brother's dropping 30 plus a game. Is that what Fletcher is going to become for the Boilers? And that's what I ask. Is this dream of that they're going to be, way better than they are right now, a reality?
I mean, I think they will be. You saw how much better like Sasha got throughout the course of his career. And
absolutely.
I think they started out, as freshmen as, I love you, Sasha, but maybe with some more natural talent than Sasha as far as I don't really.
Yeah, he'd be the first one to admit that for sure.
Yeah, and so I think with just experience, time in the weight room, adjustment to the college level, all that stuff, they're going to, make strides. The skill development you do. Speaking firsthand, like I got so much better as far as in college from where I was like as a senior in high school to where I was as a senior in college. Like it wasn't even close as far as just how much better you get with your skill development and your strength and all that sort of stuff. So those guys I'm sure are going to be, crazy good by the time they're upperclassmen. And as far as Fletcher's shooting goes, like I would be floored if he doesn't have multiple seasons where he shoots the ball better from three than he did this past year. So I would expect numbers of huge games. And if Zach comes back next year, I would expect Fletcher to have some massive shooting games playing with Zach and getting the number of open looks he'll get like he got this past year. So, he hit a rough stretch, and I think it kind of compounded on it, maybe with some confidence and just, leaving some shots just short, where maybe, some tired legs, some freshman legs. And I think he's going to be, Fletcher's going to get bigger and stronger. He's going to be able to take some of that physical punishment, better as he gets older. I think he's going to continue to work on his handle, his ability to drive. He's never going to be someone who probably is able just to square somebody up on the perimeter and shake and bake and cross him over or get to the rim. He might be able to do a little bit of that, but for the most part, he's just going to get better and better at the things he already does well. And, I think Braden is just scratching the surface. I mean, I think, we saw Marquise Noel have all those assists. Braden would have had some games this year where he had 14 assists if dudes just made open shots. Because he had a lot of games where he was dropping dimes. And so I think he, is just going to continue to get better. I think he's going to continue to grow in confidence as an offensive player. He's such a pass first guy, which is what I love about him, but he was a good shooter too. I think he led our team in 3-point percentage this year. And I think, as he becomes more established, he's going to, learn how to pick his spots better and learn how to be aggressive when we need him to be. But I think just as we continue to put more, talented scorers around him, it's just going to make him better too. And so I think those guys are going to get, obviously their floor is extremely high, but I think they still have quite a bit of room to get better.
Do you see, because this is something I've kind of thought with, and with the roster going forward, right? You have Edey that's going to not be, or he's coming off the red shirt. You have Colvin coming in who's more of a 2-3. Even Riddell, if depending on how he develops, you have it seems like a lot of wings. Obviously, no really backup true point guard. I know that's going to be a priority in the portal. Do you see Fletch being able to take 5-6 minutes at some points, and then you could throw out a lineup of next year or in 2 years or something of Lawyer, Colvin, Edey, First, TKR, something like that, where you can do then. If you have Fletch at the point, you can have more athleticism if need be when Braden goes to the bench. Do you think that's in the possibility, or you think it's going to be more just hunting somebody in the portal?
I mean, it would be matchup based if you were going to play Fletch at the point. I think, if you're playing FDU, no, I don't think you want to have Fletch at the point and then two guys at the wing who aren't maybe elite ball handlers either. Colvin and Edey, for instance, if they were playing the 2 and the 3, I think both those guys can put on the floor a little bit, but neither one of those guys I don't think you'd want handling full court pressure necessarily. So, yeah. So if you're playing Wisconsin, Fletch could play the point, and you wouldn't, but we're talking about wanting to get more speed and stuff like that. So I think getting a point guard in the portal, or just a guard who's got some speed and quickness would obviously be a huge help to our roster, just as far as complementing, maybe a guy who can play alongside Braden, the way David Jenkins did, but also maybe have a little bit more, speed and quickness and maybe some more experience playing the point guard position. David didn't really have a lot of experience playing the point guard position prior to coming to Purdue. So just a guy, like Nigel Pack was someone who's brought up, of course, someone like that with that skill set is obviously would be the perfect fit, because they can play the 1 or the 2, can play alongside Braden, or they can spell him, have some speed and quickness, have some ability to get to the rim, but also make shots. And those guys are highly coveted. And we saw that with Nigel Pack. As Kraig pointed out, Coach Painter was well aware we needed to upgrade and add some more speed and quickness and shot making on the perimeter last offseason. And he tried like heck to get somebody in the portal. Maybe now that our NIL situation and the Boilermaker Alliance and all those sorts of things are a little bit more squared away than they were this same time last year, maybe that does allow us to get somebody who is highly coveted by a lot of other schools that can really make an impact for us. But yeah, I would think an Ethan or Fletcher or guys of that nature who can handle it a little bit, but aren't, super quick with the ball. I think they would be better suited to be playing the wing.
Well, you bring up. Go ahead. Sorry, Kraig.
I just think, like, I understand some of the criticisms of we have to get more athletic and we have to get more athletic dudes and that type of thing. And we kind of run into this circular argument at times of Matt Painter gets, we hear all the time that Matt Painter gets more out of less than anybody in the country. And that's no slight on the players that we have. But if you look at our recruiting rankings compared to, I don't know, let's say that team from down south, we consistently outperform them based on recruiting rankings in terms of the players that we bring in. And he recruits to players that perform very highly in the system. And then oftentimes we get to March and we play some team that figures out how to blow up what we're doing in the system. And it turns into just a dude having to be a dude at some point in March. And then we struggle at some point in time. And you say we have to get more athletic. We have to find guys that can just go create their shots, get more athletic. And then you watch that recruiting cycle and you're like, Painter's recruiting those dudes. It's not like he's not trying to get those guys. Like, you watch who they offer, they're offering those guys. So it becomes like this circular argument of we have to get those guys, but if we can't get those guys, how do you be the most successful with the guys that we get, right? And as much as most Purdue fans don't want to hear it, we're not North Carolina, we're not Duke, we're not UCLA, and from a blue blood, just attraction, a name, we may not be that other team. So like you win with who you get in the system that you can win with. And then when you get a Jaden Ivey, when you get a Carson Edwards, when you get an Etwan Moore, maybe you can take that next step. And that's why I always compare us to Virginia, right? Because Virginia is not a blue blood either. But Bennett runs a system. He runs a certain way. They do it extremely well. And he got a year where he had 3 pros on that team. And they won the whole damn thing, right? After they lost in the first round the year before. So I just think sometimes we tire the things that Purdue fans love turns into things that they hate sometimes when we lose in March. And it's like, well, what's the argument here? Because we're running in a circle of Painter can make us win a lot of games with these guys, but we need these guys, later when we lose, yada, yada, yada. You get what I'm saying, Bobby, with that?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Because obviously Purdue's system, which was for this particular team and this year's personnel, which was in theory based off of have the most dominant big in the league, surrounded by a bunch of guys who are high quality 3-point shooters, like David Jenkins, 40% 3-point shooter for his career. Brandon Newman, a guy who everybody thought was fully capable of being a great shooter. Ethan Morton, Caleb First shot 40% the year before. Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, 40% high school 3-point shooters. You were in theory surrounding Zach with all these elite shooters or guys who would make threes at a pretty decent clip. And we literally got like a bunch of wide open threes against FDU. Like they had no answer for us without going gimmicky essentially. And so if we just make like anywhere close to the percentages those guys had coming into the season that particular night, we win by 25 and no one's like saying our roster construction's bad, but where you'd like to have more of those guys who can just go make a play, that's more of against probably a higher level opponent. That's not just going to give you wide open shots. That's, like if you're playing a team, if you're playing Kansas State in the Elite Eight, and they were guarding you better, that's where you might have needed more guys to go make individual plays. But they also might have tried to guard Zach one-on-one, like the way Michigan State just guarded Zach one-on-one twice because they just thought they had the guys to do so. And Zach showed them they didn't multiple times. And so sometimes we got unlucky, I guess you would say, by playing a team that knew they couldn't guard Zach. Like I watched Drew Timme just get guarded one-on-one like multiple times throughout the tournament, just feasting. And I'm like sitting there watching it. Like when we played Gonzaga, we were like, no way in hell we're letting Drew Timme go one-on-one against us. Like we're going to let Anton Watson and these other dudes try to beat us. Well, that's what FDU did to us essentially, right? Like, so I see Drew Timme get one-on-one coverage and feast, and I'm like, dang, it would have been nice if the team we played thought they could guard Zach one-on-one, but we didn't. We played a team that their tallest guy was 6'6", so they knew they couldn't. So Our recipe would have worked totally fine, potentially, if teams, thought they couldn't guard Zach one-on-one.
But I think that's the frustrating part because MK Music brings it up, and it's a good point. if they were losing to good schools in these rounds, like Illinois is not upset that they lost to Arkansas because Arkansas is a solid school. If Purdue had lost to Arkansas or Purdue had lost to Memphis, a team like that, maybe the pill would be easier to swallow. But as MK Music says, our problem isn't being outplayed in March. It is being outcoached in March to lesser talent. And that's the frustrating thing. I don't, you're making the look, so maybe you don't agree with that. But that is, from a fan standpoint, to lose to St. Peter's and to lose to Fairleigh Dickinson, I don't care what they're running. It's like, that's how we look at it as fans. Like, you got to beat those teams no matter what.
I mean, I don't know what else Coach Painter is supposed to do besides like let guys shoot wide open shots. But like, if I would, as a player who's a guy who, prided himself of being a good shooter, like I would have dreamed for that scenario. So, I mean, obviously, I guess, you could say Coach Painter put too much trust in his shooters. I mean, I suppose you could say that, but as I just pointed out, like the percentages.
I don't even think you can say that though, Bobby. I think the only criticism that you could potentially make is about roster construction, right? You could say we didn't have that guy that could go create his own shot, attack the rim, whatever.
And we just talked about how you try, and we just talked about how you tried vehemently.
He tried.
Yeah,
he tried.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For who we had, it was the right game plan, like the right system for who we had.
Right.
Well,
the ideal roster construction, if we did have, say, if we had a Nigel Pack, we'll just be hypothetical and throw him on our roster. Even if you shoot poorly and miss some open threes with the way some of our guys did, he's out there and he's able to exploit that press 4 more times, 5 more times, take some load off Braden. Braden's not as tired at the end of the game, all that sort of stuff. And then that multiplies itself into you win by 14 because Pack makes some plays and whatever, so all that sort of stuff. Like if you make yourself, if you have the perfect roster construction, yes, it allows you to be more dynamic and more capable of playing against all sorts of styles. Unfortunately, based on the way our roster construction turned out, we were more susceptible to certain styles if we, because we did have 16 turnovers, and if we only have 8, we probably win. But, because we didn't have a team full of, great ball handlers, some of their pressure did bother us. And we tried to jam the ball into Zach, a number of times because that was our style, but because they were swarming him and making it tough, we made some decisions we like to have back with probably some of those post feeds. And so, yeah, I mean, it was, I'm not sure how you could say like, yeah, was there probably some decisions throughout the game Coach Painter wishes he had back? I'm sure, just like every coach has every game. But, in the end, he's not the one like, we had situations where guys just didn't pass and catch, make the right decision, jamming it into traffic, and missing wide open shots. Like that's not on Coach Painter. If the other team exploited us and scored 90 points, then maybe you would look at our defense or whatever. But like, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. And now, and if you want to bounce off this, that's fine. But after this, because I don't want to take up too much more of Bobby's time. He's already been on for an hour. If we have a few more, because I want to also try, like we've talked so much about Fairleigh Dickinson, and that's fine. It should be talked about. But try to, like, after you make your point, Aidan, let's try to transition to a few questions about the bigger picture of next year or whatever, because we're not going to probably see Bobby until next November. And I want to hear a few thoughts on his perspective.
You promised him we'd take him to a Cubs game, Greg.
He's going to a Cubs game, whether he likes it or not, this summer. I'll be damned if that doesn't happen.
So they might not see him, but we're going to.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
Craig will have to enjoy baseball for one day.
Go ahead.
I hate baseball.
Hey, the Cubbies are back, baby. Cubbies are back, man. They had a great game today. Seems like they're going to have some really good defense, and they're going to be a breath of fresh air from what we've seen the last couple of years from our Cubs. So go ahead, Aidan.
I was just going to say the only thing schematically to me, and Dusty May, who's the hottest coach in America right now, did the exact same thing the next game, is putting Edey on more somewhat was exploited. But I also think, like, who else were you going to put him on to some extent? And so I think that maybe if you want to levy some criticism, whatever. But to Bobby's point, I wasn't going to make some grand point here. I was just going to say the players play the game, man. I mean, the players play. It's a player's game. And like Bobby said, like, dude, these guys were wide open. They could have driven the lane. They could have hit the shots. They didn't do it. So I don't know what to like.
Yeah, I have the numbers for that.
Yeah, we should go ahead, Joe.
4 of 18 on open catch and shoot threes for Purdue. So those are just standstill, catch, shoot, wide open per synergy. So that's 0.66 points per possession, 22.2%. Average is 1.02 points per possession, which is 33.1%. Still only the 15th percentile, so bad in general, but 9 percentage points below. 1 of 6 on contested catch and shoot shots in that game, 16.7%. Average for the season was 28.7%. That's a 12% difference. So overall, 5 of 24 on catch and shoot threes, which is 20.8%. Average is 31.1%. Everyone not named Lawyer or Edey went 8 of 32 overall, 2 of 18 from 3, 6 of 16 from 2.
So they just got to shoot better, and I believe they will. I just, it was hard to watch them, fall flat in that game. You wish they would have been able to pull it out. All right, big picture, Bobby. The $1 million question everyone wants to know: Zach Edey. I think all of us before the tournament started, we all made our prediction that he was not going to come back. Then when the game was immediately over, just knowing the type of guy Zach is, having been around him here the last few years, and knowing how close he is with some of these guys on this team, I thought that game probably in the immediate moment made him want to come back, because I just know he's the type of guy that wouldn't want to finish on that note. Who would? I understand there's an opportunity. If he gets an opportunity to go to the NBA, it would be impossible to pass that up. But with the NIL, like you mentioned, and different things, and there's a chance maybe they adjust those things for foreign players. I don't think they have yet. I don't know if I want to put you on the spot for a prediction, but I kind of want to put you on the spot for a prediction. Do you think Zach Edey will be back next year with Purdue?
Bum, 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 bum.
I sure hope so. It'd be a lot of fun, obviously, having him back next year. But like he said after the game, and basically what you just said, like, the biggest factor is probably going to be from a monetary standpoint. What happens? I mean, over the course of time, a lot of guys ended up, that were in his position didn't finish their careers. And even if it wasn't necessarily for a long NBA career, it was to go start making some money overseas, right? Because you only have so many years to play this game. And so I think a lot of it's going to turn out to be, what is his NBA projection looking like from a first or second round draft standpoint? If it's not first round, that certainly would bode well for Purdue and his chances of returning. Because, of course, if he's a first round pick, you're getting guaranteed money. And, you can't blame anybody for, chasing their dream and going to the league at that point, especially when you include the monetary aspect of it. But with NIL in the college game now, you're seeing a lot of these guys return if they're able to get compensated while playing in college. And, certainly from an opportunity standpoint and from a style of play standpoint, from a standpoint of, getting to win every award there is to win. His mom is beloved by Boiler faithful. And there's a lot of positive things about playing at Purdue that Zach has been able to enjoy. And so it seems like the way he's going to look at it is, barring being a lock first round pick, if he can make money that is enough to, outweigh maybe some of the other options he has elsewhere, then I would think Purdue has a good chance to retain him. But I don't have any inside info or scoop on that. I wish I did.
Do we know that, because it's been so public with other players if they made money? Do we know if Zach made anybody here? Does anybody know if Zach made any money this year?
The Boilermaker Alliance, but it was all through stuff he did in Canada. They're working on trying to get him to have the ability to be able to do those same sorts of things, but do them in the States. And that would, I think, in theory, open up a lot more earning potential for him. And so, I think Oscar Tshiebwe might have got something similar to that after he won National Player of Kentucky.
Oscar set the precedent, last year, because they took a foreign trip to his native country, Bahamas, wherever he was born.
Bahamas.
He just cleaned up for that week.
He made millions.
So what do they do? Because the Purdue's trip is to Hawaii this year. Do we send the jet to?
They have a flight trip somewhere else too in Europe, but
here's what they should do: just say, "All right, our foreign trip's going to be Ontario." Maybe not the most exciting for the rest of the team, but if it means Zach's back, then I think they'd trade that.
Go on a fishing trip.
There you go.
I mean, there's a bill in front of Congress right now to change that rule and in terms of how foreign national students can make money. The issue with that ruling in Congress, for those of you guys that don't follow the daily happenings, is that if they change that rule, it's not just for athletes. It's for all foreign national students. There's a change in that ruling. So it's much bigger than just NIL, but we've seen plenty of times where sports leads and creates positive change for everything else. So I would not necessarily be shocked if something doesn't happen in the next week or two that changes that position to where he can earn money straight from the U.S. and not have to worry about these loopholes like Sheboy did. I do think, however, Bobby, a lot of the reasons that you just gave were reasons that Oscar Sheboy came back this last year, right? And last year he was projected, mid-ish second round, but was going to get an NBA deal and go somewhere. And now he's not projected anywhere. So I do think, Greg, when we had Julia and we had Zach on, I read them as both being very pragmatic people. And just looking, they talked about how they picked Purdue and had this spreadsheet and yada, yada, yada. And we've seen more and more NBA teams, even with second round picks, give guaranteed money if they thought that player was going to stick around in the NBA for a little bit, because it actually costs them less money long term than if they don't give them guaranteed money, based on what that money is for a second round pick. So, my whole take on this is if a team comes in and says, I'm going to pick you with the 45th pick, but I'm going to guarantee that money for 2 years and take a chance on you, there's just a pragmatism about both of them that makes me think if that money's there, maybe they go for it, right? Maybe they do. I just don't know. I don't know that it's there. 2 weeks ago, I would have said 100% he goes. I don't know personally whether that actually plays out that way now. And I've heard multiple people, Robbie Hummel on a podcast the other day, didn't say, I think Purdue is better off with NIL. He just flat out said Purdue is way better off with NIL this year than last year. And that made my ears really perk up of he said that matter of factly.
How much money you pour into that, Bobby? Dang, dude.
I wish I had that kind of.
With that boiler in the stands check you got? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I know.
Bobby,
still waiting on that one.
Where are you at in your house, Bobby? This is not your normal room, or is your wife and kids gone on spring break or something?
They are, yes. That's why.
I was like, you got the living room. You're not in the basement today.
I know. I'm usually hiding down in the basement. Yeah, but yep, I'm an empty nester right now. So
if Zach's not there, next year, how does this team look? How does Trey Kaufman-Renn, who obviously, was Zach's backup and they played through the post, and at times he looked really good, and then there were other times where there were some growing pains for the redshirt freshman. How does this team, how is life without Zach next year, if that's the scenario that draws up?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's certainly going to be interesting to see. Obviously, if Zach's not there, I do think Trey Kaufman-Renn and Caleb Furst and those sort of guys will get obviously a lot more opportunity, and I think they'll be successful. Will they be as successful as Zach Edey this past year? I would say no on that would be my guess. So you would have to probably hope that if you don't have Zach return, that you're able to, maybe get in the portal and get some additional scoring, maybe from the perimeter to help, alleviate the lack of scoring you're going to have in the post. Because even though Trey Kaufman-Renn and Caleb, but particularly probably Trey, who's a little bit more polished with his back to the basket, he would still get a lot of touches down there and get opportunities to score. But he's not going to get force-fed to the same degree as Zach did, and he's certainly not going to be able to offensive rebound at the same level Zach did to get a lot of buckets that Zach got off the glass or getting to the foul line as often as Zach did. So,
is there an opportunity to play faster with Trey?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I would think whether that's Caleb or Trey at the 5, that their ability to run the floor would certainly help. But you got to have guys get them the ball, right? So ideally, you would pair them at the 5 with maybe some additional speed and ball handling on the perimeter that would be able to run the break and space the floor. Because if you have those guys playing 5 out at some point, you would like to have guys who can drive the basketball. But if you can't take your guy off the dribble, it doesn't matter how much space is down there, right? So, there certainly would be opportunity though to play more up tempo, play more 5 out, spread the floor, and try to attack that way. And that's where Coach Painter's been great, right? Throughout the course of his run offensively, he highlights his best players, whether that's Carson Edwards and Ryan Klein, or whether that's Zach Edey or Caleb Swanigan, so on and so forth. So,
do you have an early? I'm sorry. Do you have an early perspective on Willie Berg, who I feel like isn't talked about really that much?
Yeah, Willie. He hurt his hand early in the season, so missed a lot of time with his hand, and then he hurt his foot right at the very end of the year, unfortunately. So he's going to be out, for the majority of the summer, probably with that foot injury. And so, obviously, as a redshirt freshman next year, hopefully he's able to contribute. But if Zach returns, for instance, there's obviously not going to be a lot of minutes to go around at the 5, and coming off an injury-plagued redshirt year, it's kind of been bad luck. If you redshirt at Purdue, the last couple of years, it's been bad luck from an injury.
Yeah,
that's true.
But I guess if you're going to get hurt, that's the year to get hurt, certainly over another year. But I would, if Zach doesn't return, obviously there's some minutes, a lot more minutes available at the 5, and then Willie might have a chance to contribute. But if Zach returns, I would presume he would probably just, work on his game, get some spot minute opportunities here or there potentially. But for the most part, just continue to try to improve, hopefully stay healthy for a full season, and then be able to maybe make more of an impact once Zach is gone. But a lot will depend on what Zach does, of course, as far as minutes available at that position.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't get the impression that anybody feels like he's ready to just jump in and give 25 minutes a game next year.
Certainly by being injured pretty much the majority of the year, and he's not like as dominant from a size standpoint as Zach or Isaac Haas was, and so if you're not quite as dominant from a size and physicality standpoint,
I need him to be Dirk Nowitzki. Is that too much to ask?
Yeah,
I know he can shoot, so I'm just saying I need some Dirk.
I don't know that he has the same ball handling or ball catching skills as Dirk.
I need Dirk. All right, we'll work on it. I know he goes to that makeshift Purdue gym that they got over there. That is a pretty cool Airbnb setup. A couple more for Bobby, and then we'll let him enjoy his time in his quiet house.
Oh, I thought you had one.
No, I don't. I'm at a lot. I'm done belly aching, and now I'm looking on to the future.
I just wanted to, and this isn't, I guess, for Bobby, and maybe I should wait, but that's brought up a couple times of waiting for Zach. And maybe there is some truth. Obviously, 7'4", 290, whatever. And I think we all agree he moves pretty well for his size. The other thing with the slower tempo, there's two things. One is my nerdy analytical side. And it hurts in those games against Fairleigh Dickinson, against St. Peter's, is when you get these lower possession games, it increases variance. And so if you're the better team, like if Purdue plays Fairleigh Dickinson for 2,000 possessions, they are stomping them without a doubt. And I have no doubt about that. But now you take it to the small sample size and things can happen. But I'm completely different from with slowing it for Zach Edey is like, and we haven't talked about it. Like I think it gets overlooked is he is the best. He is the best rebounder in the country, offensive, one of the best defense. He could probably be the best defensive if he didn't just let his teammates get some. The best offensive rebounder in the country by a mile. Sometimes Purdue's best offense is literally huck up a shot and let Edey go get it off the glass. He had 6 against Fairleigh Dickinson. He was getting double teamed on box outs. Like we mentioned, he was getting triple teamed. And so I guess I don't have a question. It's just I've been holding that in for about 45 minutes. And so I just needed to let it out of like, there's that aspect too of this slower style is you let Edey get to the rim because he can go get any miss pretty much at any point.
Yeah. And that's where the 16 turnovers end up killing you too, right? Because if you get 8 more threes up, wide open threes, maybe you make 1 or 2 of them. And then on the other 6, Zach gets 3 of the offensive rebounds and putbacks. So yeah, that hurts because Zach, to your point, was just so elite. Like, and that's why I felt like going into that game, I was like, man, even if we have one of these bad shooting nights, Zach's just going to get so many offensive rebounds that we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But they pulled
turnovers. Yeah.
They pulled him out so far, though. Like there were so many times when when a missed shot went up where Zach wasn't down in the paint because
we're talking about offense. We're talking about
offenses.
We're talking about when Purdue was shooting.
Oh, never mind. I'm an idiot.
Like Edey is elite.
No, you're good. You're good. But yeah, I mean, Zach, that was their ability to pull Zach away from the rim at times.
Yeah.
Sorry. On the other end, obviously, was helpful. But yeah, I mean, we even got, in games like that, you have to have some, bad bounces and stuff. Like I remember Zach blocked somebody's shot one time off the backboard, and I think it bounced right to a guy from Fairleigh Dickinson who laid it in. Like the St. Peter's game had some plays like that, some crazy bounces like that's. But to Joe's point, like when you have a smaller sample size of possessions and stuff like that, and if you get a couple bounces that don't go your way,
that's when things happen.
Are there any transfers you're looking at in the portal? We had our eye so much on some guys last year. I know it may be somewhat early in this game. Is there anybody you're looking at specifically?
Well, like the rest of us, I'm active on Twitter, and so if I see a guy that says the list of teams that he's interested in, if I see Purdue on there, I immediately go to YouTube and watch his highlights and see what his game's all about. And if he's a quick guard who makes jumpers and can attack, I get excited. So
that kid from Northern Arizona kind of sparked my ears a little bit, or sparked my whatever. Piqued your interest or whatever. Yeah,
but
yeah. I don't know if you watched any tape on him or not, but
I did. Yeah, I watched his highlights there really quick, and of course their highlights. So all these guys look great in highlights.
Right.
But, then I look at their percentages, and if they have pretty good percentages. But I think really it would be nice just to get an influx of speed and quickness, and just another guy who's played the point guard position to help take some load off Braden. I mean, Braden's awesome. I'm such a big fan of his, but it would be nice when you play a team like a Fairleigh Dickinson or play a team that wants to, like Maryland, with press the way they are. It'd be nice to go, two-headed monster back there from a ball handling standpoint, and because sometimes like Braden was able sometimes just to like be a one-man press break and just weave his way through, but he was the only guy who was capable of doing that. And so if he got trapped and had to give it up, we oftentimes didn't have that guy who was receiving that pass have that ability to just be like, all right, like think about if Braden's tossing it back to Jaden Ivey and there's a lot of space in front of him, like what's going to happen? Like we're going to be Michigan State hanging on rims or whatever. Right. So I'm just hoping that, and obviously, the staff is clearly like going after somebody like that. And so hopefully one of those guys sees Purdue, sees how good we were last year, sees themselves hopefully as maybe the missing piece of the puzzle. And with our NIL, package in a better place, hopefully they choose Purdue. And if Zach comes back and if that happens and we get a guy like that in the portal, game on.
There you go.
Yeah. And the only big they were connected to, I think, was the kid from Ball State who's at IU now. So they haven't really been mentioned with a big, which I don't know, no reason to speculate on that with Edey, but all the guards they've been connected to are kind of quick, dynamic scorers who can shoot, dribble, pass, shoot. So it's encouraging. I think with Cone, there weren't many big boys listed, certainly NIL big boys listed in that little grouping of names. So I'm like, all right, well, maybe we have a shot, but I guess we'll have to see. So, yeah.
There was one 6'9" guy out there. I sent you guys in the group text. I said
Aiden's talking about. There was a 6'9" guy who went to IU from Ball State.
Yeah,
Peyton Sparks. Yeah.
No, it wasn't him. It was somebody.
Was it the dude from Virginia?
No,
I don't remember.
The Kansas State guy is intriguing.
I thought that too. No, this was a smaller school guy, and it wasn't the Ball State guy because I instantly would have recognized the Winchester, Indiana thing when it happened or whatever. But Bobby, fun question for you before you get off. If Zach comes back, you've got Zach Edey, pick and roll. You've got Cam Heide, who every time he jumps, I think is going to hit the top of the backboard. And you've got a super uber athletic Miles Colvin come in. over under on alley-oop lob dunks that Braden throws next year if those 3 guys are on the court per game.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. Definitely. I'm not sure how many minutes Cam and Miles are going to play next year, but when they're on the floor, it's definitely going to give us some more speed and athleticism on the perimeter, which will obviously be fun. And if those guys are catching lobs from Braden, that's going to be awesome to watch in Mackey Arena for sure. And with Zach catching lobs, Caleb First can catch some lobs. And so, yeah, there should be a lot of high flying in Mackey Arena next year, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
And we don't know how much they'll play, but none of us thought that Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith would be starting at the beginning of this year either. So
Aiden called Braden starting pretty early. I'm just going to give Aiden the credit. He was on with Braden starting from very, very early.
So Aiden's Braden moment is my Jaden Ivey moment.
Yeah.
So I've got receipts on Jaden, and in the comments somebody was coming at me about that, but I got receipts that I called that early.
Well, anybody who watched Braden play at Westfield, I mean, come on, he was so good.
Yeah, it was.
So, Bobby, any final thoughts? I mean, you've been such a big part of what we do here at Boilers in the Stands. This year was a big year for us. Certainly found a lot of new viewers and listeners, and we're very grateful to everybody that's kind of hopped on this train here, what we're trying to do. But, Bobby, you've been an integral part to building this. The friendship we've built and relationship we've had is I'm very grateful for, and I know these guys are as well. So thank you, first and foremost. And secondly, any final thoughts before we send you on your way and maybe we catch you in the bleachers, for a game and enjoy the summer, but probably won't talk to you again until November. So any final thoughts as far as this season or looking forward to next year?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of already touched on it a little bit, but I guess my final thoughts would just be like, and I try to be the glass half full positive Purdue guy the majority of the time. And, I was just as devastated as everyone else was when we lost, but, I just want Purdue to, Purdue fans and Purdue Nation, certainly be disappointed, but I just don't want everyone to take that one loss and just forget how awesome the ride was all year. Just how fun, winning out in Portland was, and then winning the Big Ten regular season, winning the Big Ten tournament. And, even though we weren't playing our A game all the time, just having the ability and finding ways to win. I thought, the coaching staff did an incredible job this season. All the players, you got like Brandon Newman, who goes from, playing a lesser role for the majority of the year and then coming on late, making an impact. It was cool to see him have those moments, and just, everybody putting the team before themselves, David Jenkins being one of those guys that the whole team, all the young guys, the old guys, they all really enjoyed his experience that he brought to the table, and the way he interacted with all of his teammates, and just, across the board, all the accomplishments the team had. I don't want Purdue people to forget about that, because it really was a special year that just had a tough ending. But I really had a blast. Me and Rob Blackman are spoiled. We get to call games for, one of the best teams in the country year in, year out, with, amazing coaching staff, guys that are fun to hang out with on the road. The players are all great. That's what Coach Parent's done such a good job at, is not only recruit talented players, but guys that are good dudes and are, have fun conversations with, all those sorts of things. And so I just want Purdue fans to, still appreciate that. And then, next year, if the stars align for us, we could have quite the redemption tour, which should be fun.
Yeah, it sounds good to me, man. Thanks again for everything. We'll miss you. We'll reconvene next November talking Boilers, and hopefully you can take us up on the offer to come to Wrigley and hang out with us and catch a game and have some fun in the sun.
Only if you promise to drink one of those baseball
big beer bats. Well, I'd have to fill it with whiskey because I don't drink beer.
Wow.
But I'll feel
he
it
does
with...
not. I took him to a brewery 3 times, and it took 3 times before he told me he wouldn't drink beer.
I don't know if we need Greg doing 26 ounces of whiskey at once.
No, I handle it just fine. But
if we go to a Cubs game, that might be the only way that I enjoy baseball. So
Hey,
There we
the
go.
pitch clock's got this game cooking now. I kind of like this pitch clock. At first, I was against it, but I was enjoying the tempo of the game, listening to it while I was at work today. So, Bobby, enjoy your summer. We'll catch up with you real soon, and stay in touch and enjoy your summer with your beautiful family, my friend.
Thanks, Braggs, and thanks, fellas. Appreciate all the coverage you guys did this year. You guys did a great job. It was fun following your guys' content, and always have a blast coming on here and talking hoops with you guys. So
Appreciate that.
man.
Aiden, take it easy on my boy Alex.
All right, I will. He was pretty
Whoa.
devastated. Pretty devastated.
What's
Yeah.
the inside story here?
Alex Borst, who was a basketball manager when I played, he was a senior my senior year. He coaches with
I
Aiden
gotcha.
at West Side, so
I see.
they're good buds. They got good staff over there at West Side, so good
All
luck
right.
to them next year.
Well, hey, take care, Bob. Thanks for all your time tonight and all season long, as always.
All right, fellas. See
All
you.
right, boiler up.
Aiden has like all these secret connections we don't even know about.
Aiden's connections run deep. They do.
No, it's not.
Dude, you knew that Shrewsbury was going to Notre Dame like 2 hours before everybody else.
Before that, he told me multiple weeks, probably like 2 weeks. He wasn't like this is done.
You're not supposed to say that, Joe. You're not supposed
Why not?
to say that.
Yeah, you guys weren't supposed to reveal that, but thank you.
Well, just between us girls here. Before we move on to a little bit of, kind of getting some of our thoughts that we haven't gotten out yet. And I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors this year. We appreciate these guys hopping on board to Boilers in the Stands. We look forward to their continued relationship here with what we're trying to grow. So as life changes, your insurance needs change. Shire Insurance Services and Crown Point, representing auto owners insurance, has been helping clients with their changing insurance needs for over 25 years. As an independent agency, we love working with auto owners to provide excellent service to our clients. Buying your first home? Start with Shire. Expanding your business? Start with Shire. Your teenage driver passed the driving test and you're worried about the increased cost in auto insurance? Start with Shire. The first baby is on the way and you want to reassess your life insurance? Start with Shire. Whatever your insurance need or concern, we are ready to help make those things easier for you. Call 219-663-7274 or search online at www.shireinsurance.com to start with Shire. Make sure you go and hit these guys up. They're Boiler fans and good people.
You've dreamed about the perfect house, a place to call your own, and a place to not only stretch out, but to grow. Auto Owners protects your house because to you, it's home. That's simple human sense.
Ask Shire Insurance Services, serving Indiana, Illinois, and Michigan, if auto owners make sense for you.
Happy to help, man. I was just over there talking to myself anyway.
And thanks again to Shire Insurance and also our guys at Mad Mushroom Pizza. You want the best pizza in the game or the best cheese sticks in the game? Go on over to Mad Mushroom, any of their locations in Lafayette or West Lafayette. Use our coupon code BITS for 15% off any order you make. That's right. So if you go into Mad Mushroom, you want those cheese sticks, you want that pizza, use our coupon code BITS for 15% off any order you make. We really appreciate all of these sponsors jumping on board with us this year. Fan Bags, Mad Mushroom, Shire Insurance, our guys over at ISC Purdue have been great. Make sure you're following them at ISC_PU. They've been providing us with a lot of images immediately following games, to kind of help put a picture and a visual to what we're trying to say here. And they've been just such great supporters of what we do. So I just want to give a huge shout out to those guys as well. I'll give a couple shout outs to our guys over at Brokerage as well. We'll say this again at the end, but I just want to tell everybody on May 6th from 4 to 9 p.m., they're having a food truck festival, Friends of Fred Food Truck Festival at Brokerage Brewing Company, where we had our great meet and greet before the Indiana game or the Illinois game. I'm forgetting now because my head's spinning. But the Illinois game. That's right.
Yeah.
It's free admission, parking, music, a family fun zone. They're going to have a bunch of good food there. So head on over to 2516 Covington Street in West Lafayette, Indiana. Go to Brokerage Brewing Company to enjoy the Friends of Fred Food Truck Festival, May 6th, 4 to 9 p.m. Shout out to all those guys. They've been huge contributors to our show, and we appreciate them immensely. So let's round second or third. I don't know where we're at in this show, but
first.
We're giving Boiler fans, we've kind of ran through FDU again and talked about some big picture stuff. But, the way I see it, I think for a lot of fans, this will be something they can come back to for a while. If some fans may not get over it for another month, and if they want to come back to this show in a month, it'll still hold relevance as far as the conversation goes. Looking forward to next year or whatever we want to talk about, to be quite honest. And I know there's a lot of Boiler fans that are very grateful of that. And, I do have to say, the comment in the chat earlier from MK Music meant a lot. He said, just want to say, Braggs, this is the best Purdue basketball channel, period. Thanks to all contributors, regulars, and guests. Enjoyed it all. Can't wait for next year, Boiler up. And that means a lot to us. We're working really hard here, and Bobby's such a big part of it. Isaiah, our referee correspondent, has been, a great little wrinkle here to this show. Obviously, you guys, I've said it a million times, what you guys bring to this is great, and I wouldn't trade any of you guys for anybody out there. I think you guys are as good as it gets when it comes to this Purdue coverage, and you really lift me up to a level that I could never attain without you guys. So you know how much I appreciate you, but to hear it from the fans, we appreciate that. So all the reviews you leave, the like button that you hit on YouTube and subscribe, that means a lot to us. So I just wanted to get that out of the way, and thank you, MK Music, for the nice words in the chat here tonight. So let's get on to, some of the topics that we want to cover today. Joe, you brought up this graphic, and it's got a lot of colors, which I like, but it's also got a lot of names and numbers, and then that's when my head starts getting confused. So you got to explain to me what the hell I'm looking at here. I know it's probably fairly simple, but simple is never easy with me.
So this is just, I just threw it together today, and I know there's other people that have stuff like this. This is just the roster, scholarship rosters over the next few years. Right now, included in this is Edey coming back. Obviously, we don't know about that one. Everybody else on that's coming back for next year. I just wanted to kind of look at, what is actually coming up for Purdue. Middle part is just kind of my projected, like, where, and it's not accurate because positions are fluid at this point. Like, Heidi, Riddell can both probably play the 4 if needed. Colvin could play the 3. Newman could probably play the 2 if needed at times. So that's the middle part. I just kind of want to throw something together. And then the bottom parts, Purdue's upcoming commits and then some offers that they have out for over the next year. You have their ranking, their height, their position, what year that they're graduating high school. Obviously, so like Colvin's graduating 2023, so he'll be here next year. And then, the top is just, colors by what their class is. 1 star means it's a red shirt, right? So like TKR, Riddell, Smith, and Lawyer are all technically the same class, even though TKR and Riddell redshirted. And so it's just kind of showing throughout there how long they have, like, lose 3 to 4 guys for next year after next season. But then the year after that, you lose first once. And so then you set up this potential senior year of for Smith, Lawyer, TKR, Riddell. You have, the younger guys, Heidi, Berg, Colvin, Catchings, Benner, at least 2-3 years in. And that is the year that the Final Four is in Indy. And I'll just kind of leave that at that. But that's
right.
Just,
well, and that's what I want to ask you.
I mean,
that's what I want to ask you because, the question is which year excites you the most? And it'd be easy to say next year, especially if Zach comes back. That's probably the go away answer. But at the same time, when we talked with Bobby and as we've talked about here on the show, like the idea of Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer and Trey Kaufman-Renn as seniors with how well they played as freshmen in a year where the Final Four is in Indianapolis And then you also have guys like Kanan Catchings in his second year, Miles Colvin and Camden Hyde as juniors. Now you're talking about some of that athleticism that we are talking about that we need on this team, but they're also experienced. So, let's say Zach isn't back next year. Which year excites you more? Next year or that 25-26 season?
I mean, it's got to be the 25-26 just because there's so much room for potential, right? Like next year, next year we don't know what we'll get from everybody, right? There's going to be improvements. There could, hopefully not, but there could be regression, things like that. But like you know who Gillis is, you know who Newman and Morton are, you know pretty much who First is. But the Smith, Lawyer, TKR, like these young guys, we have an idea, but we don't know who they truly can become. And that kind of year, the 25-26, especially, you have four seniors. It'll be interesting. Waddell's the interesting one out of that of like, does he develop into somebody that can play in the rotation consistently? And I think he can, obviously, right? Like there's a ton of signs before the injury. But then you have Heidi and Berg, that'll be their fourth year in the system. Third year, obviously playing, but fourth year in the system, that's huge. Colvin will be with that as his third. And then, I know we're all pretty big on Cannon Catchings. His second, he'll have had a full year in the system at that point. And Benner's, I think, I don't know as much. I know he's a lights out shooter. But
he broke a backboard.
He did
broke a backboard, and then followed that up by dropping 50 points in 2 straight games.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
Wow.
So I'm gonna run.
Well, the other question I want to have real quick for Joe before we run through all this, or have you guys react to it, is these players that they have offers to.
Yeah.
Is there any specific one of these guys? You can go to 2, but I want to hear one. If you got 2, fine. That could put this team over the top.
I mean, and Aiden's probably the one to better answer this, but I will throw out Jalen Harrelson from Fishers. I don't think Purdue's near the top for him from kind of as I was doing some research. But if you get him, he's a 6'7" combo guard, top 10 in the country already. Like the dude's legit. I think he would be the number one. Aside from that, like I said, I'm not confident that Purdue gets him. I'm interested about Perry. I don't think he takes him maybe over the top. The Jakari Harris, I don't know a ton about, but from what I've heard, he has potential. So he'd probably be the other one. And it kind of fits with Purdue too, of just needing a guard, although that is a little bit later. And at that point, some of the bigs will have flushed out. But I'm going to throw that one to Aiden because I know he's more in tune with this side.
Yeah, I mean, Harrelson's going to be a one and done kind of guy, and Catchings might too, depending on how this goes.
Exactly.
So I don't know that we could necessarily pencil him in for a second year, as awesome as that would be. But he is pretty skinny, but he's got some time to kind of put some weight on. But Cobra brings up Riley Burgess. I really like Riley Burgess. He's not mentioned in there, but he's a guy, 2024 kid who is really skilled, plays with Perry for Indiana Elite, plays with Flory Badunga, who obviously is kind of a pipe dream at this point. Jakari Harris is actually Big Dog's son out of Atlanta area, really skilled guard. Perry is a kid who has just surpassed King Kelly Coleman in the state of Kentucky for most points ever in the state of Kentucky, and he's only a junior. I think he has like 3,000 plus. So he's a guy who can really fill it up. Not maybe the most athletic, certainly wouldn't solve that kind of thing. We kind of theme of this show of like we need to increase athleticism, but he can really shoot it, kind of like a Braden, maybe not as quick, but probably a better shooter even. And then Sisley's really good. Walker, Moreno, those guys are all good. I don't know how much they're interested in Purdue. Sisley seems to me like an IU block. Harrelson, he's visited Purdue a few times, so maybe, but just that high-profile guy would surprise me. I think with Benner, too, he's a lot like Sash, honestly, Braggs. He's kind of got the same build and can really shoot it. Obviously, Sash wasn't necessarily breaking backboards, but he's not an elite athlete by any means. He happened to break that backboard, which is cool. But Kind of a stronger guy, may struggle to defend like 1s and 2s, but could probably do a nice job on 3s and 4s defensively.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, could really shoot it. So yeah, it's a good group. I mean, they're doing their due diligence, and obviously the portal changes a lot of this too. If he doesn't come back, you got to think they go get one of the better bigs, and you'd think they'd be attractive to bigs in the portal. I mean, I don't know that, but
I'm actually bigger on the 24-25 year. Specifically, I was going to jump in and say what Aidan did. I don't think catching stays a second year. Personally, he's ranked 17th right now on 247 in that class. And the NBA is about potential. So he doesn't even have to be great as a freshman. But with his size and length and shooting ability and the fact that he has some guard skills in terms of being able to handle the ball, I don't see him being around the second year personally. But you put Lawyer and you put Smith in there as juniors at that point, right? Yep. Edey coming off a redshirt freshman year into a sophomore year, Colvin going into his sophomore year. That's, if Zach doesn't come back next year. If Zach comes back next year, then we have 2 phenomenal years to look forward to and then see what else Painter brings in. But I think that 24-25 year for me is the one that just jumps out as like, we've got some really good dudes who have a little bit of experience under their belt. And then we get a guy that's a legit potential one and done guy that can put you over the top in terms of just, I can turn and shoot. To me, I don't want to say he's Johnny Davis because he's got more size than Johnny Davis. And I think he has more skill than Johnny Davis, but right, like Davis had some guard skills at 6'7", 6'8", right? And catching is just going to be able to rise up over smaller guys and take that shot and be in there as a freshman. And I think get us buckets when we need buckets, have good guard play. At that point, we won't have, I guess, a true dominant 7-footer unless Berg turns into that guy potentially. But I think we all need to step back. Like, I've seen a lot of guys in Purdue fandom just jumping in and saying that Miles Colvin is going to do this next year, that Cam Heide is going to do this next year, that Willie Berg is going to do this next year. And, like, we all got to understand, until you see it against D1 guys consistently, we don't know that, right? Like, it's nice to project that, but we don't know that. Jaden Ivey played at La Lumiere, right? He was playing against 4 and 5 stars every game. So you could take that tape and you could translate it a little bit more than maybe we can with some of these other guys. So we don't know. Like, Colvin's tape is catchy. That highlight reel is ridiculous. But he played for a 1A school or a 2A school? 3A? Oh,
2
because
and 3.
they're private.
It fluctuated from 2 to 3.
Right.
But his AAU team, was Indy Nets, which is his dad's team, and is not like highly, they play on a lower level circuit, whereas Ivy is Indy Heat and all that.
Right. It's not Indy Heat or something like that. So, I mean, I'm excited. I am really excited about Colvin. But I think we need to temper these expectations of, like, I saw Brandon Newman literally jump over a guy in a highlight tape and dunk over him before he came to Purdue, and everybody assumed he was going to be an immediate star. And then
it was probably my highlight you saw,
right? He brags. You always got to take it back to you. I'm just kidding, buddy.
I was gonna say, says the guy who's always talking about who he called. Come on now.
Okay, but. I guess what I'm saying is, we can look at some highlights and just assume that's going to translate, but it's not that easy. You got to see it against true, like, D1 Power 5 dudes to know it's going to happen. So we maybe need to pump the brakes in terms of assuming some of these guys are going to be instant starters or even instant contributors. Carson Edwards literally broke Steph Curry records, and he played 12, 14 minutes a game as a freshman for Purdue. Right?
I could check that.
Yeah, it takes a dude. And I know this year kind of broke the norm with Fletcher and Braden, but it typically it takes a dude to just come in and get serious minutes at Purdue as a freshman.
Edwards was 22. But I agree with all your points. I 100% do.
But he didn't start. That's
21 games started.
God dang it! I thought he came off the bench like most of the
21
year.
out of the 35 he started. So
All
14.
right, whatever. I'm wrong. Gosh dang it!
But I agree with a lot you said, and I think it's finding a balance between being super excited, because I think it's fair to be super excited about Colvin, and we talk about catchings and better, and past that, I think it's fair to be super excited. Heidi Berg, right? Like all these guys. But it's also I worry that Purdue fans are going to fall into this like, oh, Colvin is going to be like the guy next year.
Yep.
And so now even if he's just solid,
we went through this with Newman, right?
Yeah, I mean, and so then if he's just solid, your expectations are here. He's still here at a solid level, could improve. I'm just worried that people like will bail on him if it isn't elites from day one, because I don't even think they'll bail.
I think they'll blame it on Painter, because that's kind of what happened with Brandon. Is he didn't earn it on the practice, in practice to start, and then now he's shined through here, as of late, and good for him. But as David Jenkins said, and Brandon Newman said it in some of his post-game pressers, it started on the defensive end. So Miles Colvin and Camden Hyde have a ton of athleticism, and that's great, sorely needed for this team. But the only way they're going to be able to best utilize it is by locking down on the defensive end. So that is what needs to be determined. Then they'll be able to try to grow offensively, but it starts on the defense.
Yeah.
That's how you get on the floor.
Yep.
With Painter.
Yep.
That's if you can't play defense, you don't get on the floor.
Yeah. And I was just
you got to know what you're doing. You got to know what you're doing too. When they're practicing during the summer or they're in the film room during the year and you do something wrong, Painter doesn't mind when you do something wrong, but when he asks you in that film room or on the practice court, what are you supposed to be doing? You got to have that answer. If you didn't do it right, fine, then you got to correct that. But it's even worse if you don't know.
Yeah, for sure. And if you had something, I was going to kind of change subjects. So if you had
you can go ahead. I don't have anything.
Transitioning a little bit to like, and I think it correlates with like this athleticism that is coming in, and then the potential skill that goes with that with these players, right? And Midwest Toker said it way early, like not the same game as it was in the past. And I assume he's referencing the post touches and all that.
Yeah.
And I know it's something we wanted to touch on. And I guess I'll just go with my thinking for the next couple of years of this post-centric offense that's been one of the best in the country for a couple of years, right? It's if Edey's not back next year, then yeah, I don't think you don't run 20% of plays they ran this year were post-ups, right? Most in the country. Edey had the most post-ups per game at 12.6, I believe, a game. If he's not back, and I don't think TKR is going to do it, or Painter's going to do it for TKR. Like you don't run this bless you, this super post-centric style, right?
I couldn't hit the mute button fast enough. Sorry.
You're good. But if Edey is back, like I think, and people will say the FDU game is the reason you don't kind of want Edey, but I'm still just on the point of like, he is so dominant that like he creates the offense so much better for everybody else, right? He created so many open shots just by literally existing. Now with that, and I think this is where I kind of relate them to UConn. UConn has, Sonogo averages the 20th most post-ups per game in the country. It's like 8 a game or something like that, or 7 a game. So a little bit lower than Edey, right? They still run a ton of post-ups. They have their identity is still based in like they have a good to an elite big at all times, and maybe it's not, but and Craig's giving me a look. They have the wings and shooters to go with it, and they don't have to solely rely on it. And that's what we talked about today, and that's where I think we're at with Purdue. Is like if Edey comes back, you have the best big in the country. You have an offense that can create open shots by him literally just existing. You just need a couple guys around him to be able to help with that. UConn has it. UConn has it in Hawkins. He's a tough shot maker. They have wings that can defend, that can push, that can shoot. that's just kind of where I'm at of this post-centric offensive. Like, I think it works with Edey. I still think this is a system that can go far in March if Edey's back.
But what percentage, that's why I asked you today.
Yeah.
What percentage of UConn's points this year came from post-ups?
They had 12% of their
12% of their plays, 12% of their possessions were post-ups. We were almost double that, right? Like we were 20 something. So I guess that's my only thing of, I just don't know, man. I don't know that like a super heavy, and we saw it early on, like not just us, but IU and some other teams that were post heavy, Arizona with two really big dudes out there. Some like post heavy teams just didn't last. And like, does that work? Or do you just need a big that's can do the short roll off a pick and roll, can offensive rebound and catch lobs? Like, is that what you need? And I guess that's one of the things that I kept coming back to. And that's why I texted you about the pick and roll stuff. It was because like multiple games this year, I was like, man, we're killing them in pick and roll, killing them. And then it seemed like in the second half, we just like whenever it would get tight or we got to that second half and had a lead and like Painter wanted to, and Painter is one of the smartest, if not the smartest coaches in all of college basketball. So I am not telling anybody what to do. I'm asking a question. Like, can you do that consistently and win? Or do you need a big man that is going to be that rim runner, short roll, collect offensive rebounds, and make your offense heavily run through your guards and wings?
See, that's where like I go back to UConn. Sanogo is, and he has the capability of rolls, just like.
But 12% of their offensive post ups.
Yeah, but I'm like, yes, that
you can have bigs, but are you running traditional post up offense as a huge part?
They're still
of your
one
offense?
of the more. They're still like the 80th percentile for percentage of post ups run. It's not like they're not running them, like a large chunk.
Right.
Like that is still a large percent. And you look at Sanogo, like 40% of his shots come from post ups. He does have some rolls with that. He rolls more than Edey, without a doubt. And I think I agree. Like there is an added element of needing that. I think Edey's so good that you can do it with him. If it's not Edey, then yeah, I think you for sure. If it's TKR first Berg next year, like you taper that post up to 12% or 10% or something like that. I think to me that makes sense. Like of what you're saying more of, yeah, you don't run it as much. And even with Edey, yes, there's probably times you want to go pick and roll more. And I know I've been talking a lot. So Aidan, what are your thoughts? You know, you kind of, if you had thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, I see both your guys' points. I think Edey can do a lot of that. I mean, certainly with another year, you'd think he'd improve as a short roll decision maker. But I just think it comes down to having better guys around him. I think, you know, I mean, UConn is your example, and their four guys around Sanogo are night and day with our four guys from this past year. I think the personnel we have this year lent itself to more post-ups, even though I agree with Kraig, and Kraig and I talked about it all year about let's get back into the ball screen offense. When you watch, you know, Kansas State, the creative ways that they're getting into ball screens, they're not just running them, you know, okay, clear out, two guys in the corner slot, and then we'll bring up the big and set a ball screen. Like, no, they were running different actions that would then flow into ball screens for Noel. And they need a guy like Tomlin. Their big is quick and long and athletic. And I do agree with Kraig that most of the successful teams, yes, not UConn, but you know, they're somewhat of an outlier in all this. Most of the successful teams had bigs who were a little more of the rim runner variety. As far as Tomlin, you look at the Elite Eight, you know, Golden's sort of a hybrid, I guess. You know, Omier, Kalkbrenner, Mensa, you know, of all these teams. But yeah, I don't know. I think Icy Mike makes a decent point about, you know, like I said earlier, I think they built a team where they are dominant in the Big Ten. And there's something to that for sure. But obviously, I think at this point, everyone wants to get over the hump in March, and I am with that 100%. So, yeah, I think maybe a little more pick and roll. I think maybe, getting in situations where Edey can rim run. He can do that a little bit. But again, I think if you do have Edey, you probably, like Joe, you said earlier, the tempo thing about, I was in favor of the slow tempo all year just because I felt that was their best, give them the best chance to win. So I don't know where it all really, I wish I had a better answer than I don't know, because that's not great.
But you bring up a good point, Aiden, that it's not just Purdue. It's about the Big Ten in general.
Yeah.
And I see Mike brings up a good point that you almost have to play a certain way to win the Big Ten and a completely different way to do well in the tournament. Because, like, I swear to God, when I watched Michigan State this year, I was like, oh, they're going to finish friggin' mid in the Big Ten and probably make the Elite Eight or the Final Four, because they're not like what they do well will succeed in the NCAA tournament, because most teams outside of our conference don't have a 7'4" friggin' monster that's just going to pound them. And they almost beat us, at Michigan State, even though they were at an incredible disadvantage. So I think there's a lot about the way. I hate that Beeline is gone, because Beeline was the one guy that was pushing the issue of we're going to play a different way in the Big Ten. Iowa does, but they don't play defense, so that doesn't count. But Beeline was the one guy really kind of changing the offensive system in the Big Ten, and then he made that ill-fated decision to try to coach in the NBA. And nobody else has really come in and done that since. We don't face different things. I have a completely different point later. I know Braggs probably wants to jump in, but I have a completely different point about just us being so far polar on one side with size and what we do compared to what mid-majors do versus what a Kansas or somebody that's super athletic that's kind of in the middle of that spectrum does, and why mid-majors scare me more than Power 5 conference teams. But what's up, Braggs? What you got?
I did want to thank Icy Mike for jumping in. We wouldn't have had a wrap-up. It wouldn't have been a proper wrap-up show without you, Mike. So I appreciate you popping in. Even if you're late, he's making fun of my clothes. He's saying I'm not wearing any Purdue gear. So I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm rocking the CHGO. Got the Cubs hat. Just got this recently. It's the Cubs World Series hat that I had years ago, and I drunkenly gave it away to a bartender in Puerto Rico. So I finally got a new one. I think I might wear
Puerto
this
Rico
in 2016. So that was the last time I had this hat, was in 20. It's a pretty slick hat, I must say. So I bought it on eBay the other day. It came in the mail. And I think I just might wear it all next year to rub some luck onto Purdue, because like I said before, I know some people don't love my comparisons to the Cubs and the Boilermakers, but I see a lot of parallels and similarities. So I'm hoping that Purdue can break the curse, just like the Cubs once did. So I don't really have too much. I'm enjoying listening to you guys kind of kick this around, and I know the listeners are certainly enjoying it as well. It's hard for me to really, put into words what I want, because like you guys said, we go, like Kraig said, I thought it was a great point. We talk so much, we beat our chest throughout the year about how Painter, is able to get the most out of these guys and play and be the coach that he is, to get them to their 25th Big Ten championship and be number one in the country for 10, 12 weeks, whatever they were, for a team that has two freshmen in their lineup and all that stuff. And then for it to end that way, then all of a sudden all these questions, arise for Matt Painter. And I think they're fair conversations. I wouldn't want anyone but Matt Painter here. So, right. I'm just trying to rack my brain on how they get through this. And MK Music brings up another good point here in the chat, because when you guys were talking about, stylistic Big Ten, Beeline pushing the envelope for a different style of play, he brings up, hey, maybe, USC and UCLA coming in here in a couple years might change that, or will they have to adapt to the Big Ten? That's
UCLA
gonna
But UCLA plays
built
like
for
us.
Yeah, UCLA is built for the Big Ten.
okay.
That's like Mick Cronin has been a like grind, fight, physical team with a big man his entire existence. Like
Okay.
The only difference is
That's
they
not
have
gonna
a few
change
more
anything.
shot makers, I guess, than most Big Ten teams. And
yeah, but I think that he just randomly got lucky with Jaquez.
Jaquez and-
Like
Michael Gordon
yeah,
wants us to
Jaquez.
acknowledge the White Sox. We do not acknowledge the White Sox on this show ever. So you're gonna have to find a different podcast for that, Michael, especially with some of your Cubs slander in the chat. You better watch yourself. Go ahead, guys.
Well,
all
the
right,
other thing-
this.
yeah,
you
go ahead. No, go. You got it.
Okay. I was bringing up this comment. Bama had athlete speed, lost because they missed threes. That's like, there's a lot of stylistic, there's a lot of X's and O's. The tournament is just a variance, fest. It's can you play well? Can you execute your strategy and then make shots? Now, a lot of times, that can correlate. You look at Miami, right? They have guards that can just make shots. Miami barely survived. Miami probably should have lost their first round game. Like they were bad in their first round game. They probably should have lost that. They survive, and then they go on a hot streak of 3 games, and now they're in the Final Four. FAU probably should have lost their first game to Memphis. They survive. Now they go on a hot streak. They're in the Final Four. San Diego State, they were in control against Charleston. It was a 6-point game. They get by. They look really good since then, or good enough. It's not as fun to watch, obviously, but like there is this element of the tournament is like you do like if Purdue survived that FDU matchup, what if they won? What if they just randomly had a streak of 38% from 3? Right, we're probably talking about them in the Final Four today. You got to do that, and they didn't. So I'm not saying that, but there is that part too of like you do have to get things aligned. It doesn't excuse Purdue's loss, and I'm not saying that for anybody out there, but like there is that part of like you look at the only team, the exception is UConn, right? They just rolled everybody. Most teams you just have to survive a game or two, and then you have to be clicking for the others, and then you're in the Final Four.
All right.
Well,
but to that point of the commenter,
you got it. No,
I'll go real quick. To that point of the commenter, it's not just having athletic guards and wings, it's also having experienced athletic guards and wings. If you look at the number of years of players have been on those teams that are in the Final Four the last 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
So it's almost like you don't want one, like you want athletic guards that can get their own shot, that develop into it in their second or third year, that aren't NBA one and done guys. It's a really fine friggin' line, man. Go ahead, Aiden.
Yeah, I was just going to make the same point essentially, but like, yeah, I mean, Purdue's system looks very different than all of the teams for the most part that were successful in the tournament this year.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is like, you look at San Diego State, like, yeah, they'd fit right in the Big Ten stylistically. But as Kraig said, all those guys are huge. They're physical. They dare the ref to call fouls, all the way up until the final one there in that game, So, so like, but Purdue's never going to do that. They're never going to be the ones they're definitely the classy program. Where we're not going to be really that physical. We're skilled. That's the way Painter's talked about. He's decided to make a shift to go to more skilled players. And this year those skilled players were pretty young, so we'll see what happens in the future. But there is an argument to be made that it's not really modern basketball. It's efficient offense, that's for sure. But it I don't know. It doesn't really look like any of they don't have elite shot making guards. They don't really have, the balance that UConn does. Who does? Obviously, they don't have the physicality, the defensive intensity, the experience of a San Diego State. And then, maybe to Greg's point earlier, they don't have kind of the free flowing transition, depth personnel of FAU that is also pretty unique. So maybe it's just stupid to make those comparisons. And I might agree with that, but like, it is interesting. I mean, there's really, to me, in my mind, there's no real world where Purdue makes the Final Four this year. with some of these teams. I just think they were more suited to play today's game, and unfortunately, this Purdue team, as great as they were, and we should absolutely remember them for all the accomplishments. Like even if they had gotten through that FDU game, like boy, I think they would have been in some trouble against FAU and maybe beyond. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I wish I did. I'm not as well compensated as Matt Payne and his staff, so that they can figure it out. But yeah, it's interesting and kind of a tough puzzle to solve.
Well, since I am as well compensated as Painter, I'll go ahead and contribute here. I'm totally kidding. But no, I think it's interesting that you say like Purdue will never be that ultra physical, like San Diego State get up in your face team, because that's what like dudes like me that are 46 and you weren't even born like when I was watching some teams, obviously, Aiden. But like Gene Katie era, that's what a lot of those teams were. Like they were super athletic, physical teams. They like defense lives here. That's where all that came from. So to say that Purdue will never be that type of team, maybe not going forward, but I think a lot of Purdue fans are used. I don't want to say used to, but like they saw that San Diego State style of just like grind and fight and get up in a guy's grill. And maybe you don't have the best shot makers, but we're going to turn you over and we're going to block shots and we're going to foul more than the most teams will type of thing. And Painter actually tried that for a hot minute. Like he had the baby Boilers and then he transitioned to that for a hot minute. And I think he just thought I can't win that way here now, and then went to a different style after that. So it's interesting just watching the progression, and especially with Painter having played for Katie and then trying to figure out how can I win in my recruiting base. Like my recruiting base is Indiana, where there's a ton of skilled high school players that are coached by really good high school coaches. And I can get guys that, maybe past the guys that are going to go to the Duke or North Carolina or whatever from Indiana that are really, really highly ranked. I can get a bunch of really highly skilled guys to come to Purdue and to buy in. But maybe I can't play that ultra physical brand of basketball anymore. But on the flip side of that too, as we talk about, can you get athletic guys? Can you get guys that are going to grind defensively like those guys are? We do have to step back for a second and say FAU and San Diego State are in the Final Four this year, right? Yep. So like if FAU can get guys that are those athletic guard wings that play the way they do, and
including one out of the region,
right? No, I was going to say that, including one that we could have recruited, then there is something to say of like, well, couldn't we have gotten some of those guys? Like, I'm sure, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he really just wanted to live by the beach because FAU's campus is friggin' amazing. But I'm sure if we'd offered Janelle David, that there's a good chance he probably comes to Purdue, right?
Yeah, I don't know if he would or not. I don't know him like that, or his, but yeah, I think those are all.
He probably does. Is the point? I mean, it's Purdue, a Big Ten school closer to home, and he was on Indy Heat with a bunch of good players,
a bunch of dudes,
and he was the only one that didn't go to like a more well-known school.
Because he was on Jaden's team, yes. Right? Yeah.
Then Blake Wesley, who we also didn't offer.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have a scholarship for him. Yeah, we didn't have a scholarship for him. So.
And then Nigel Pack as well. So some good Indy Heat guys that have come through that have kind of slipped through the cracks for Purdue and IU. IU has had scholarships. They just haven't really prioritized some of these guys. But yeah.
Well, Kraig, could you? I was changing subject a little. I was just making a joke. Could you say Purdue kind of played that San Diego State style? Could you watch that team for 35 games in a year?
Oh, hell no. I mean, I would, because I'm a Purdue fan.
Yeah.
But that's like, we've had private conversations where like, I like the way Miami plays, like free flowing guards going everywhere, cutting everywhere, shot making, crazy passes. Like that's the style of basketball that I love to see. I used to live 40 minutes south of South Bend. And when they had Chris Thomas at Notre Dame, even though I was a Purdue fan, don't kill me, Purdue fandom, I would go up just as a college basketball fan and watch Mike Bray's Notre Dame team play during that era because it was just so fun. But there's been plenty of Purdue teams that I thought were really fun to watch, and most of those have been under the Painter era, whether that was the Carson Edwards, Ryan Klein team, the Etuan Moore, Juwan Johnson teams, even some of those years when AJ Hammonds as a 7-footer was stepping out and shooting 18 footers to 3-pointers. Like, I loved watching those teams.
Yeah, no, for sure. I get you. Can we get?
And I love watching this team. Just to be clear, I love watching this team too.
Hey, I'll take it, man. I'll go be a G. I'll work with our guy Jared.
You had one other too. Oh, here it is. Paid. Agreed.
No, I'm getting pushed in here by Michael. He says, sorry, Aiden. Braggs give Aiden, Joe, and Kraig more money. I got
No. He said Kriag. He didn't say Kraig. He said Kriag.
Yeah, Kriag. Yeah. Well, hey, our sponsors, we're gonna be hitting them up here soon, and we're gonna get these guys well-deserved checks for their hard work here this year, and hopefully next year we can get a little more in our pockets just to keep building this up and putting the money into this program that you guys are watching, and we appreciate everyone's support as we do that. You guys are welcome to kick it around as much as you want. I got baseball on over here. I'm listening. I'm trying to add to the conversation. I'd be lying if I didn't say I am just completely wiped from a day of laying a bunch of brick, but I'm enjoying the conversation. I also,
brick by brick.
Yeah, you got that right. Brick by brick all day long. And like I said, I also want to be able to give people something to listen to over the summer. I know some people said they're going to miss us this year. We do plan on doing some episodes here in the not too distant future and maybe a few over the summer just to kind of hold you over. So we're not going to completely disappear. We have talked to some of the guys that are coming up here in the Purdue program that might jump on the show. So maybe we'll get some Boilers of the future here to talk to, but we'll just have to see scheduling wise how that works out. So we've got some things in mind, but I wanted to be able to, and I think this has been a great show to give people, some more, to kind of to go through, whether it was the tough ending or looking towards the future. And I think we've covered a lot of that here tonight, but if you guys got more, have at it, man. I honestly am enjoying the conversation. I don't know where else you guys would want to take it, if at all.
Greg, I think the most important thing is, did you get closure tonight?
No, I don't think I will. I'm just so depressed about the whole thing. November could not get here fast enough for me because it's just hard to wear this one. I can't believe it's harder to wear this one than the St. Peter's one, but here we are. So I just feel for the Purdue fans. I feel for the coaches and the players. I said that immediately following the game because a loss of this magnitude is just, it never goes away. You'll see it on every highlight montage for the rest of tournament history. Like I said, the only other 16 seed to win, it beat Virginia. Virginia went on to win a national championship, so they don't have to wear it like Purdue's going to have to wear it. And Virginia also didn't have the kind of stigma that Purdue now seems to have or has.
Yes, they did.
Well,
Virginia always had that.
Okay, well, I don't feel I'm not around Virginia, so I don't feel that heat. We're feeling the heat here. And it felt like it feels like the last 2 years the entire country is rooting against Purdue. I don't know why. I feel like they're a fun story, a good story. They're a great coach. They got great players that they do it the right way, all that stuff. You got schools around the country that have premier players that, you could argue shouldn't even be playing for some of the stuff they're up to. And you got these guys here that bust their ass and do it the right way. Painter does it the right way. And for whatever reason, you got everyone in the country just dancing on their grave. And it just pisses me off to no end. It really does. So I'm just looking forward to the day that Purdue gets to have that last laugh. Because as I've said a million times about the Cubs, it's the same thing. That everyone just enjoyed the misery of Cub fans. And when the Bartman thing happened, it was a miserable moment for a lot of Cub fans. And everybody else just thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And it's not funny. It's awful. I mean, when Purdue lost, I had literally like 900 people laughing at me instantly, texting me, sending me messages on Twitter. It's like, it's brutal. I wouldn't do that to my worst enemy. I really wouldn't.
How do you think it felt being Duke like during those years? Like I don't buy that argument at all, and I've heard a lot of Purdue fans make that same argument. So I'm going to completely disagree with you here, Greg. I think Purdue fans in the last 2 or 3 years have literally sought out any negative perspective towards Purdue. Like if I would just take it on balance over the last 2 to 3 years, I feel like there's been more people in the national media rooting for and saying positive things. Even people love to throw Indy Star and Greg Doyle under the bus. That dude has written friggin' 998 good articles about Purdue, and he writes like 5 negative articles, and everybody throws a shit fit. Like people just they gravitate towards those few negative statements and negative articles. And it's like, man, like everybody friggin' hated Duke for like 10 years, right? And like, how do you think they felt? I mean, get over it. Like, get over ourselves.
Yeah,
I don't buy into that.
Purdue fans have had their angst towards Field of 68, and you're one of them too. I've heard those. You've said those things to me where you're pushing back.
I'm repping a Field of 68 shirt underneath this shirt right now.
I know we like the guys over there.
No,
but you've also pushed back on a lot of the narratives they've tried to draw up.
Well, that's because Jeff Goodman's a fucking idiot. Like, I don't push back against Waddell. I don't push back against Douster. I tell you, he's great. Friggin' Oglesby is incredible over there. Like, anyway. I only push back against stupid narratives. I don't push back against actual critique that's genuine. So that's it.
I think the running joke was every time it was like Purdue's turn to be number one, Field of 68 would find some other. Why aren't they number one? And that was going on during the season.
And you always told us, well, that's their shtick. That's what they're supposed to do.
Of course.
You defended them, Greg. You defended them.
But that's the point. Well, I also just expected them to I didn't expect them to lose as a 16 seed either. So
it was okay. It was okay as long as Field of 68 wasn't right.
But I'm just saying you were a part. So like when you're saying that you're pushing back, you were also one of those people that was pushing against those narratives.
I get it. I get it.
Right. We go through waves. This is what we do as fans. We go through these waves of emotion, and it's just a downtime right now. There's no question about it. So, this conversation we've had here tonight is therapeutic in a lot of ways. It'll help me get through it. It'll help me a lot more to get through, to just forget about this and get through the summer and get to next year and roll that ball out on Mackey Arena and fall in love with the next team, So
and watch banners. We'll see banners come down. I don't know if people will be happy about it, but we'll see them.
Yeah, and that's I'm happy for.
I'll be happy about it. I'm making sure I'm going to get to that one.
Hey, Michael Gordon is yelling at you and me, Greg, to quit bickering between each other, and for Aiden and Joe to bring us back to real conversation. But hey, Michael, Greg and I are having real fan conversations that happen sitting over a bar stool, and we need to settle that type of shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I bring here is that meatball fan in the stands perspective. And I've said it a million times, these three guys with their perspective on what's going on the court, there's no one better. I just try to keep up around here. So I'm happy to give them all the leeway and platform they deserve, because there is no one better than these three guys right here.
Appreciate that. And you mentioned earlier, we'll have possibly some interviews and stuff over the summer. Definitely going to be back next year, or at least that's the plan. Look out for Feed the Post type YouTube, wanting to kind of break down more sets, want to preview not just Purdue incoming freshmen and transfers, Big Ten incoming freshmen and transfers, get some film, team preview type stuff. We got some stuff planned there as well. So I know, college football is huge and all that. And we won't really probably talk about that here, but or at least on this show specifically right here, maybe there's stuff in the future, is what I was trying to say more. But there's still going to be plenty of college basketball stuff. I'm excited to really dive into the incoming classes and stuff, really dive into more teams, more schematics, and with Aidan and that and getting film. And I think it's going to be fun. So the plan is still, there's going to be plenty of content from a college basketball standpoint, at least from us.
Yeah,
for sure.
I just can't wait for November to get here. I want it all back already. I miss it.
You got a week left, Joe.
Purdue, I guess, and Big Ten. Something about the Big Ten. It pulls at me,
The only thing that was running through my mind while you guys were talking was have we ever seen Greg, Doyle, and Kraig in the same room? You guys kind of look like.
No, dude, you don't understand. So I met Greg Doyle for the first time at the NCAA tourney, and he came up and shook my hand. He said, "Hey, you're Kraig Bowers from Boiler Diehards, right?" Like, I was like, yeah. And he was like, "Thanks for pre-approving me to let articles automatically post, yada yada." And he was like, "Man, we kind of got the same build and hairstyle." And I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, there was multiple times this year when I was sitting in media row where some lady would come up to me and tap me on the shoulder and be like, "How you doing, Greg?" And I'm like, first of all, my name's close enough to your name, Kraig versus Greg, that sometimes I would just get confused and I would turn and be like, I don't know you. And then they would be like, "Oh, I thought you were Greg Doyle, And I was like, "No, ma'am, sorry, I'm not Greg Doyle. I'm Kraig Bowers from Boilers in the Stands, whatever." And they'd be like, "All right, well, if you see Greg, let him know I was here." And then Greg's like, "Well, were they good looking? Because if so, can you put me in touch with them?" And I was just like, what? Wait, what? I don't know you, buddy, but hey, whatever.
All right.
I didn't take names and numbers, Greg. I didn't take names and numbers.
Yeah, that's good. Wow. All right.
Hopefully now that I said that, hopefully he's a single man. So
I have, this was brought up way earlier. I think we're jumping all over the place at this point. Green light for Zach to shoot threes if he comes back. My thing with this is and I'm going to try to give a serious answer is unless he's shooting, what's the percent that he has to shoot for defenses to respect it?
If he's shooting 35.
Yeah. 35, then even then defenses are probably going to be
right. No,
make it.
But it's not just the respected. It's what you lose by the fact that he's not there to get the offensive rebound.
Yeah.
So when I say 45%, that would be he would have to shoot that well to even think about taking him out of the post because of his offensive rebounding percentage.
And the 45% would have to be on probably 3 to 4 attempts a game.
Well, right. And
but Sasha has told us that Zach would stay after practice and that he can shoot threes, that he can shoot from outside.
No, he can.
And then we saw the video of him, before the tournament, it went viral that he was banging threes.
It was one shot. It was one shot.
It was a couple in a row.
He can. But this idea that, oh yeah, he can boost his draft stock by coming back and adding a 15-footer or a 3-pointer. No, that doesn't matter to the NBA. That's not going to be his role. It might be in years, but they don't care about that. Even if they see him hit a couple threes, it's not going to, oh yeah, now he's a first rounder because he's hit a couple of mid-range jumpers or a couple of threes. No, that his role in the NBA will be mostly similar to what it is here. He may step out and hit a corner three, and if he gets lucky, he'll have kind of a Brooke Lopez-esque arc and maybe become sort of a shooter. But it just isn't. That's silly. He's not going to do that next year. I mean, I'd like to see him make a couple. It'd get the crowd going for sure.
The Travion. Do the Travion thing. And
sure.
Travion, he put up 28. I can pull up the exact number right here. Travion, his senior year, Oh, he only put up 14. Jeez, it felt
That's
like
fine.
a little bit more.
14. That sounds like a great number to me.
He was 5 of 14 from 3. Cool. 1 every 2 games. You're just wide open. Let it fly. Why not?
Especially at home. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just I don't think it ever gets to the points. Man, we're deep in the weeds. We're diving into Zach Edey 3-pointers 2.5 hours in. But like, I don't think it ever gets to
over under on Zach Edey made 3-pointers next year. Aidan, instant answer. Don't think.
Like set it, or what do you think I'll have him?
Yeah,
make?
set it. What's the over under?
2.
2.5. Yeah, I was gonna say 2.
I would say 1.5. He probably I might take the under. I bet he just one, just kind of drills it. He's gonna go 1-1. That's what he's gonna do.
Yeah, because
go
like at the
1-1.
end, even if he shot 45% from 3, like Kraig said, he'd have to be shooting 4 or 5 a game before teams actually took notice, because he's like, I mean, what is his percentage at the rim?
Right.
So a team analytically is going to say, take that shot every single time, because around the rim, you're like 80% likely to make the shot,
Right.
So that's
He was
60, but yeah.
just
was
depending on the matchup.
70% at the rim per synergy this year, which is 1.42 points per possession. So that is what you're going to have to. Wow, that 45% from 3 is pretty accurate. Like that would be 40 if he can shoot, assuming he keeps the same efficiency at the rim.
Of course, it was accurate. I know what I'm talking about, Joe.
True. If he shoots about 45% from 3, then it's the same efficient shot. So now then you're at the point where like, okay, definitely go out, shoot some maybe. If he could do 4 a game at 45%, yeah, let him fly.
All right, predictions.
And Greg, if you want to see Boilermaker fandom in a nutshell, I said something historically, and Michael Gordon, I love you, man. I appreciate that you're a fan of the show. But literally in less than 1 minute, he said Bowers is a true Boilermaker, and then I complimented Doyle for like being balanced in his coverage, and then like immediate later, he was like Doyle's a douche because Doyle has criticized us literally like 3 times. Like, come on, give me a break, man.
You revealed that he actually might be with that story. You revealed some inside info on Doyle with that.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. Valid point.
All right, so
I mean, you can't blame a guy for wanting to meet a nice girl. Like,
no, that's true.
All right, predictions. Zach Edey, National Player of the Year. Will that be announced on Sunday?
yes.
Is that when they announce it?
Sunday is the day.
Then yes.
He lost a fan.
Whatever.
If he doesn't win, honestly, if he doesn't win National Player of the Year, I might take this computer and smash it against the wall. So he better win.
If he doesn't win, are we doing an emergency live show?
No, because you'll literally have me just throwing a shit fit.
Yeah.
And then we can clip it, and then
people will take to the streets. It'll be fine. He's gonna win.
Jaden Ivey earlier in the Chris Ruda, I didn't get a chance to ask Bobby, so I apologize, but I'll ask these guys. Jaden Ivey, will he win Rookie of the Year? Kraig, I'll start with you.
No, it's gonna be. Oh my God, I just drew a blank.
Banchero or Jalen Williams?
Yeah, Banchero. It's gonna be Banchero. And in all honesty, like. There's a few rookies that are playing well on teams that are doing decent, like take Keegan Murray, that are getting a little bit more respect than Jaden from national media, just because like Jaden right now, because there's been so many injuries in Detroit, which was already a bad team when he went there. Like he's basically getting to do whatever he wants all the time he wants. So there's even a little more respect for a couple other guys out there like Murray and whatnot. So I think Jaden will be on the all rookie team of the year, whatever that is in the NBA. But it's going to be closer than people think. Like I think he'll be the 4th or 5th guy on that team.
I'd be 6th per odds. I don't know how much, because it's like
right. And
he's
the all
like
rookie
most points and most assists for rookie.
I know. But he's on it. He's literally on the worst team in the NBA. So like he can just do whatever. So what he said 6th. I said he's on the cusp of all rookie team, which is top 5 players. So
Okay.
Yeah.
These guys, Joe Jackson, Aidan Kunst do the Feed the Post podcast. As everyone knows here, we've talked about it a bunch here. Make sure you're following them on Twitter at @feedthepost_. They'll likely be doing Final Four and national championship shows and breakdowns here in the upcoming days. So make sure you follow those along. I don't know if you guys want to give those away now, but that was my final predictions. I wanted to hear from you guys. Who wins the Final Four games? Who wins the national championship? Start with you, Kraig. Go around the horn.
Who's in the national championship game?
Yeah, who wins the Final Four games, and then who wins?
Well,
the
based
national
on the last show we had, I changed it like literally within broadcast 3 times. So I originally said that Miami would beat UConn, and then I turned around like literally 3 minutes later and picked UConn to be my national championship game. I think it's really, really hard. But I'm going to throw a real big curveball in here because the only teams that have won a national championship in like the last 20 years are teams that are in the top 30 in KenPom offense and defense, both coming into the tournament, not once they reach the Final Four. Miami is an outlier on defense. San Diego State is an outlier on offense in that metric. So I'm going to take UConn, FAU to make the Final Four. But UConn has really struggled with guards that can get up underneath them and get up into them defensively and disrupt their offense. They've got to play 2 WCC teams, Gonzaga and St. Mary's, so they had a really easy road to get to the Final Four. I'm going to go way out there and say FAU beats UConn in the national championship game.
Wow. Joe.
Give me UConn over Miami, and then give me San Diego State over FAU. That's an interesting matchup, right? Because both of their strengths kind of lie in this 9-man deep type thing. FAU has worn people out because they have legit 8 guys that can drop 12 to 15 points. As San Diego State has done it where we are going to throw 9 bodies. We are literally going to throw 9 bodies at you, like physically at you, bump you, and just wear you out. And it has worked. I'm going to lean San Diego State. I think that FAU probably has the better overall guards, but I've liked these San Diego State guards. I've liked Trammell. I've liked Butler. I'm counting on Bradley getting going a bit, and I think they take care of FAU. And then I hope this isn't true. I think UConn rolls them in the final. So UConn over San Diego State.
I got Miami over San Diego State.
Wow.
Hard
Jim Larinaga
play.
taking down UConn for the second time in his career here late in the tournament. So it'll be really interesting. I don't know. I want to see FAU versus Miami. So that's what I'm rooting for.
Yeah.
And I want to see FAU win it all because John L. Davis is from 2 towns over, from Gary, Indiana, went to 21st Century High School, covered him in high school a few times, watched him play. Had no idea he was going to, have his stars shine this bright, and I'm very happy for him. Anybody that's from the region, I think we all kind of band together and wrap our arms around those kind of stories. So that'll be no different with John L. Davis. I'm rooting like hell for him. It's pretty awesome story that they're doing down there. And if they're to win, they'd be the largest seed to ever win in the NCAA tournament at 9-8 is right now the largest seed to ever do it. And, losing to a 16 seed sucks, but that's happened now 2 times in the last 5 years. 15 seed took down Princeton, took down Arizona. Even at Fairleigh Dickinson almost won their second round game against FAU. They gave them everything they got, and I just think you're going to see more and more of that. I got to give a shout out to Game Day Gabby because she made a really funny joke on Twitter like a week ago when somebody talked about expanding the tournament, and I saw Jim Larinaga say expanded to 96, and she made the joke. Please, I don't want to lose to a 24 seed. Don't make me go through this. It was just really funny. Go ahead.
I was like, I really do think that and maybe it's just this could honestly just be me coping, and I'm willing to maybe just admit that that's what all this is. But I think we're not far away from 15 and 16 seeds winning at least like one a year, like consistently. I think we're right on the cusp of that, just because there's I know that it's a debate in the NBA of eras, yada yada. I am under the opinion that it is fair to say, not that there wasn't a ton of talent back, but this is just across the board. There's just purely more talented players now. And I think that's true for college too. Like, I just think there's more talented players. And so you're plus the transfer portal, plus, I guess NIL doesn't quite work for these lower majors, but transfer portal and that, like, I think you're going to get these collection of guys that can, of the 15, 16 that are like, yeah, these are like guys that, could play on a legit, like mid-major, high major. And I guess Fairleigh Dickinson maybe it's not the best example, but I think we're close. I really do think we're close to that.
And when you get teams that are the one seed that take it to the extreme, like Purdue does with the size down low, and then you take it to the extreme the other way, some of those mid majors that make the field are super, super fast, super small. You get these ultra dynamic situations that are just opposing wills. Right. Whereas like in general, like a Kansas stays in the middle. So like if we have an X point, a Y point, and a Z point, right? Like I think Purdue's the Z, FDU's the X, and like Kansas is the Y in the middle somewhere. Like when you get these extremely opposing styles and sizes out there, in some cases, I think those mid-major or low-major teams are actually better suited to take advantage of what Purdue does than high-major teams, where the gap is different. Like Kansas doesn't have an extreme speed advantage over Purdue. They just don't, because those guys are bigger and not ultra extreme quick in what they do. But those mid-majors, like those dudes, the only reason they're in college basketball is because they're ultra fast and ultra shifty and like that type of thing that they do. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I think you were spot on there.
All right. Final predictions. Jory Lyons wants to know, do you guys have any prediction on anyone that could potentially be redshirted next year?
There's only one coming in.
Yeah.
Maybe Miles. Maybe Miles could.
I wouldn't be shocked. Like if nobody transfers out, I'm not going to be shocked if Colvin redshirts. If
he does, it'll be defensively. Like if Painter doesn't think he's up to par individually, defensively,
like
or
TKR.
just learning the concepts, right? Because TKR was obviously there offensively from the get-go.
Yeah.
But then, I went to the spring game that year and I was like, he doesn't know where he's supposed to be right now. If that's the situation, I could see it. But honestly, I just think this team needs an infusion. I said this in a Boiler Die Hard post earlier. We'll reply to a post. But I think this team needs an infusion of offense so much right now that it'd kind of be like Carson Edwards was friggin' terrible defensively his freshman year. Like let's be honest, he was god friggin' awful defensively. But we needed that, like, I can get you friggin' 15 points off the bench at any point in time. And I think we're in that similar situation. So like if he can just be a net positive on the floor, even if he's not playing good defense, I don't think there's a chance he redshirts.
Yeah, and let's see how the portal shakes out. I mean, guys coming and going, we'll see. So,
yeah.
I'd
if you bring in a Nigel Pack type guy, then maybe he redshirts,
Right.
All right, so I think that about wraps things up, unless you guys got anything else. Joe left. He's just this.
Oh, here he comes. Here comes
he
Joe.
got his socks. We got his socks on the show. I like it. Put him on the spot. No, it's all good. You got anything else before we wrap it up?
Craziest twist of this is Nigel Pack transfers to Purdue next year. Fulfill it.
Homecoming. Now we can offer him even more because apparently we got our NIL straight.
Yeah.
I had a few people ask this question. Matt Criswell, Braggs, you should definitely do lives for football this upcoming season for the Purdue Boilermakers. And so that's definitely been a discussion. Craig's been talking to me about it here last few weeks. For those of you that don't know, I am not a Purdue football fan. So neither is Aiden. I'll throw him under the bus. We are Notre Dame football fans. So, I have been talking.
You cannot say that live.
I will.
Greg.
I'm not going to hide from. I am
conversation.
not going to hide from who I am. I have
Oh my
infiltrated
God.
this fan base.
Half
No,
of
I
making fun of
infiltrated this
IU
fan base,
basketball
and
fans is
now this
I
stigma
know.
of making fun of IU fans that are Notre Dame fans. You have two here that wear this crown
It was,
here.
hey, you
Maybe
can
it's a
throw
dunce-
yourself
maybe
under
it's a
the
dunce
bus.
cap.
You can throw yourself under the bus. It's not fair to throw Aiden under the
No,
bus.
that's fine.
without
It makes
asking
it
him first.
easier.
Dude, I don't
makes-
care. I don't care.
I'll balance it. I'm on the opposite ends. I literally don't care about college football except for Purdue. Like that's the only college football game I will watch. So
Dude,
I'll balance
the
it out.
chat is going nuts right now.
Yeah, well, hey, I've said it before.
I'm gonna come. Hey, I'm gonna come in and save you all. I have been in conversations. Right? Can I say this, Greg?
Sure.
I
was gonna say something, but you can say it. I don't care. I don't know what you're gonna say, so say it.
He's like, I don't care about football, so whatever. Yeah, I've been in conversations with some people. I'm apparently the only college football fan that is also a Purdue college football fan in this show. And I've been in conversations trying to assemble a team similar to Captain America, trying to assemble my team around me because everybody else on the first Avengers team left to be able to also cover Purdue football. I've got one commit. We're looking for one or two others, and then I said on Twitter the other day, it's trending that way. I think we're getting really close to where we can have a show. I've already talked to Purdue staff. They told me that they'll let us into the Purdue press package also with Purdue football. So we're getting close. Just need to finalize a couple things.
Good food up there. Say that.
Maybe I will cover Purdue football if there's good food. Wait a minute. Time out here.
Greg's like,
I cover the
food?
Chicago Bears during football season, and my Sundays are taken up every single week. And a lot more than that. And I'm extremely busy with CHGO Bears. So Saturdays are my day to be with my daughter and my beautiful wife and hang out with them. And sometimes give my wife a day off. Even we call them Addie Daddy days, where I go out with Addison and do something and let Jenny just hang out. So I'm not going to commit to anything with football, but I've told these guys since they joined me and put their hard effort into what we're doing here that they can do whatever they want with this channel. I trust that they're going to put out a good product. They're going to put in the hard work. They've earned that in every sense of the way. So if Kraig wants to do a football show this season, you're going to get a football show here on this channel. So, if you're mad at me about my reveal about my Notre Dame fandom, you can at least be happy that I'm giving you guys the channel to do whatever you guys want in the chat. Kraig, whoever, have fun with it. I'll promote Purdue. I root for you guys. But I'm a Notre Dame football fan. Like I've been since I've gotten on the Purdue basketball train. I'm not a Purdue football hater. I root for you guys, but a lot like Purdue or a lot like Notre Dame, neither of us have a chance to win a national championship. So what's the point,
bro? Since I said that, I've had like 20 text messages or Facebook messages from people saying that they want to like be the third host on this show.
Well, I'll let you sift. I'll let you sift that out, Kraig. Good luck to you, fighting through everybody to jump on board, and we appreciate everyone wanting to be a part of this. But don't feel like just because you're in the chat that you guys are just as an integral part of this as I am or anybody else is here. And I can't emphasize that enough. The support everyone's shown this year means a lot to us, and we really appreciate you guys, tuning in and spreading the word about what we're trying to do. So it's only going to keep getting bigger from here. Going to keep having fun.
And we'll be
And-
back next year for sure for basketball.
Yep. So we'll see how things go. Might have a show here in a few weeks. Just keep
And
on the lookout for updates, and we'll promote when we do. And so thanks again to everybody, Kraig, Joe, Aidan. It's been great working with you guys this year. It's been a lot of fun building this thing, and we've talked about it a million times here on this show, but it's just been a great year. It was really exciting to see this thing grow like it did. So thank you to everyone in the chat once again. Thank you to our sponsors, our guys over at Mad Mushroom Pizza. Make sure you use that coupon code BITS for 15% off any order you make. This is a deal that's going to be running out here, I'm sure, shortly. So it's not going to be there forever. So get in on it while it's still there. Use that coupon code BITS for 15% off any pizza, the best pizza in the game, the best cheese sticks in the game, Mad Mushroom Pizza. Our guys over at Fan Bags, my good friend Brian, such a great friend and a huge supporter of what I've been doing here for 5 years now. So I really appreciate him in a big way. Make sure you visit www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS to get 10% off your entire order. They do some great work. Some of the best cornhole boards you can find. And Shire Auto Owners, or Shire Insurance with Auto Owners Insurance from Crown Point, Indiana. These guys are diehard Purdue Boilermaker fans. So you need some new insurance, start with Shire. Call 663-7274, area code 219, or visit www.shireinsurance.com for your insurance needs. Thank you to all of them. Once again, keep following Feed the Post at @FeedThePost_ on Twitter. Joe and Aidan are doing a great job as always. They're going to continue to put out basketball content throughout the offseason. And then once again, go to Brokerage Brewing Company in West Lafayette, Indiana on May 6th from 4 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Friends of Fred Food Truck Festival, free admission, parking, music, family fun zone, whole bunch of good food. Head on over to 2516 Covington Street, West Lafayette, Indiana, for the Friends of Fred Food Truck Festival. So thank you again to Brokerage Brewing Company. That's Kraig's stomping grounds, and they're good people over there.
Have you ever had pierogies?
Yeah, of course. We have a pierogi fest here in the region.
Well, you're in Chicago.
Icy Mike is from Whiting, and Pierogi Fest is in Whiting, Indiana.
Okay,
and it's a big
Joe
deal
and Aidan.
there.
Have you ever had pierogies?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, I did not know what it was until the pierogi truck came to Brokerage. Oh my God, they're amazing.
Yeah, they're
great.
great.
I was like, how did I not know this existed? And then I found out they were like festivals for pierogies all over like different places. Yep.
Yeah.
Incredible.
That's awesome. I might be making my way over there to Brokerage, check out some of those food trucks. That's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome, man.
All right, so
you guys are awesome. What do you got, Joe?
And I just want to confirm this before I am on the show next year, pretty much no matter what, right?
Yes.
We're
right. What? Wait. I feel like this is like this. We can't say no matter what.
We're gonna review each of you individually. I'm gonna have meetings with each. No, you guys are.
If he's gonna say he's gonna be,
I think you guys have a better chance of being here next year than I.
Yeah. Well, if he's gonna say he's gonna be a grad assistant, like statistician for IU or something, we can't say automatically he's on the show.
But, and this is more for brags. My interest in the NFL has gone down over the past year, so I'll preface with that. But just thought I finally should let you know that I am a Packers fan.
What is going on at the end of this show? We're just gonna alienate everyone. So I just alienated the chat. Now you're pissing me off. You're a Packer fan.
Yeah. Wow. You act like this is a bigger deal than you and Aidan saying you're Notre Dame football.
That is a bigger deal.
Well, this is a bigger deal.
No, it's not even closer.
It's a brag. I knew this would be for brags. That's why I wanted just to confirm that I'd be on the show,
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that's not great news for me. But you guys are losing Aaron Rodgers. He's on his way to New York.
Joe's going to a dark
Bears
hut
are on the rise
for the next. Joe's going to a dark hut for the next 2 weeks, and then he's going to come back and tell us if he's joining the show or not.
Yes. No, we'll be back and better than ever next year.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be at the open scrimmage is kind of when I jump back into Purdue basketball, and I'm excited to go back to that. And hopefully Zach Edey's there. I'm really holding out hope that he returns. I think that's kind of the thing I'm waiting on. If there is an announcement, I mean, one way or the other, but especially if he announces he's coming back, we will go live immediately. If Zach Edey announces he's returning to West Lafayette. So
I think we can all agree that we're really excited for a bunch more of post-centric play. All four of us can definitely agree that that's what we're looking forward to.
Yeah.
With no solos on anybody's face.
Yeah, no, like, we all want Edey back.
I would welcome Zach Edey with open arms. So
I would too, and I'm still mad about the last show, Joe Jackson.
Everybody's gonna watch this one. Everybody knows that you want Edey back.
So I'm sorry I pissed everyone in the chat off with the Notre Dame reveal, but I mean, I've said it before, so you guys just aren't paying attention, I guess. So,
well, there weren't as many people watching.
So, and for those of you who don't know, I grew up an IU fan, just like Matt Painter.
Oh,
but hey,
wow.
I did not know.
Bro, what are you doing?
Airing out all the dirty laundry.
You don't have to say
didn't
this.
know this?
No.
I
Yes,
knew
we
it.
know.
Yeah, we knew.
I didn't know.
Oh,
You didn't know, Joe?
I didn't know.
Yeah.
How the hell do you not know?
I was an
and
IU fan my
Aiden
whole
knows?
life.
No.
I was an IU fan my whole life, and then when
Wait.
Sash
Wait. Were you an IU basketball fan and a Notre Dame football fan?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
He is
I've infiltrated the fan base. I've completely
He's the
infiltrated.
stereotypical guy that we talk about.
I see
all
Mike
the time.
says mute Brad.
We're so lucky
Well,
this
this
is
is
2
my
hours and
show,
50
so you
minutes
ain't no
in.
muting me. Hey, I'm man enough to
We've
admit
had a
it.
3-hour show.
Hey, Matt Painter was once an IU fan, and now look at what he's become. All right, I was once an IU fan, and I gave that up. I gave it up to be a Purdue fan. I've slowly transitioned into being into Purdue basketball culture. Became a season ticket holder 6 years ago, 5 years ago now. I've lost track. The first year I was a season ticket holder, they went undefeated at home and went all the way to the Elite Eight and should have went to the Final Four. So now I've earned my stripes because they lost to Virginia. That was as heartbreaking as it gets. Obviously, I was, really hoping my boy Sasha would have been able to get that Final Four patch on his jersey. North Texas, sitting next to Ryan Klein, that was not easy. St. Peter's, I was there in Philadelphia for, like I said, my good friend Sasha's final game as a Boiler. Really hard. And this year, I've worn it the hardest as far as their loss. So I'm in. I'm all in. I harass Indiana fans daily on the Brags in the Stands Twitter account. Same with Illinois fans. So at some point, you guys got to, let me in completely. I feel like I've earned my stripes, but I will always bow to the altar of the fans that have been here longer than me, of course.
You'll never get let in completely if you say you're a Notre Dame football fan, but you'll get let in for Purdue basketball. So
yeah, well, I don't really care about college football like I do college basketball, so I'm kind of in Aiden's corner on that. But we'll see.
No, that was Joe. That was Joe that said that.
No, Aiden said it too.
No, I love college. I love
you
Notre
love
Dame.
it?
I love Notre Dame football.
Yeah, so take that, chat. You got a problem with that? Meet me up in the region, and I'll buy you a drink.
I wouldn't call Purdue football you guys though. I am a student. I do go to the game, so I like
it's you guys for me.
All right, that's cool. And
All
if we
right,
find
guys.
a fake girlfriend along the way, whatever.
We had an interesting end to our season here with all of this. But hey, we're having fun with all you, so we appreciate you having fun with us. We'll be back. We're gonna have
a lot
some
of people
more shows.
stick for this whole thing, so I do appreciate
Whoever
that.
is here all the way
that.
to the end of this show, you love what we're doing. So
I
you're stuck
remember
with us for the
somebody
better
on
and the worse.
CHGO was like, Greg, how do you do a 2-hour show over Purdue basketball? And whoever that dude was, Greg, tomorrow you just need to call him and be like, we did a 3-hour friggin' show on Purdue
that was Mark
basketball.
Carmen, and
we had major fans stick around.
And I used to do a weekly 5-hour Bears show weekly for over a year. So weekly, every Wednesday night, we would do 5 hours.
Oh.
So
that's
we need to step
amazing
up our
because they're
game.
even more terrible than Purdue.
So we can get it in with the podcasting game, and that's exactly what we're doing. We appreciate you, Jeff Parks. Thanks for all the kind words from everybody in the chat. Michael Gordon says, love three-quarters of you guys. I'm assuming that's
He's gonna give Aiden a free pass.
He gives Aiden a pass because he brings the knowledge. So it's, I get it. I'll wear it. That's fine. Have a good night, everybody. We'll be back sooner than you think with more Purdue basketball content. Look out for football announcements over the summer. Thank you, Jeff Parks, and everybody else for the kind words in the chat. You guys all have a great night. Thank you again. This is Boilers in the Stands. We'll catch you soon. Boiler up.